Right now, you can try Babbel for free. Babbel starts out teaching you words and phrases by matching them with pictures. You won't believe how easy the interactive program is. Soon the sentences get a little bigger, and before you know it, you're having simulated conversations voiced by native speakers. And because Babbel is crafted by language experts and uses the spaced repetition method, in just 10 to 15 minutes a day, you'll be speaking the language of your choice with real confidence. With Babbel, you can speak a language. Just text EXPLORE to 64,000 and start your first lesson in the language of your choice for free. Download the Babbel app or text EXPLORE to 64,000 and try it for free. Text EXPLORE to 64,000.
Are you looking for senior care for your mom or dad but don't know where to start? Hi, I'm Joan London with The Place for Mom. Nobody knows your parent or loved one better than you, and nobody knows senior living better than the experts at A Place for Mom. It's a free service, and we've helped thousands of families find the right place for their mom or dad. There's a place for answers, A Place for Mom. Call today.
Call A Place for Mom at 1-800-391-1755. That's 1-800-391-1755.
Sweet strawberry icing. You're in Goodwill, and just past that vintage denim jacket you spot miniature donut earrings. You lean in. That's the scent of shopping success. Because at Goodwill, every item you buy funds local job training and more. So bring home those donut earrings and bring home so much good to your community. Goodwill. Bring good home. Brought to you by Goodwill and the Ad Council.
Influential conversations from Bloomberg Television. Here's David Weston.
One of the essential services so many of us are relying on right now are those almost daily deliveries for our UPS driver. We're going to turn now to the man behind all those deliveries. He is David Abney. He's the chairman and CEO of UPS. David, thank you so much for being with us. Let me ask you the most basic question, which is, how has your business changed as a result of this COVID-19 crisis? What are you seeing more of? What are you seeing less of? How have the patterns changed?
Well, thank you, David. And glad to be on your program. And what I'll say industry-wide, so from a whole macroeconomic standpoint, is obviously a lot more health care, PPE, and critical shipments like that. And I think you're seeing that all across the industry. And with businesses being closed and with people sheltering in place, you see more e-commerce, more residential deliveries across the industry, too. So that would be the two biggest things. And the good thing about our flexible global logistics network is it allows us to flex to meet the needs of governments or meet the needs of our customers.
Hear more interviews like this one on Bloomberg Television, streaming live on Bloomberg.com and on the Bloomberg mobile app. Or check your local cable listings.
Markets, headlines and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app and on QuickTake by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Good morning from London. I'm Sandra Kilhoff with this Bloomberg Business Flash. It is all about oil again today. We did see Brent fall to a 21-year low earlier, currently down 12%, trading just below $17 a barrel. WTI also declining on that June contract. It was gaining in earlier trading, but now down more than 6% at $10.80 a barrel. OPEC Plus did have a call yesterday, but didn't manage to agree on any new policy measures, so still quite a bit of volatility there. So over in the stock markets, however, we're not really seeing this much reflected as most of the benchmarks are moving higher today. The Stock 600 up 0.9% at the moment. If we take a look at the FTSE, similarly so, the DAX also gaining 0.9%. And in the stock specifics, I'm particularly keeping an eye on pharma giants like Roche and AkzoNobel. AkzoNobel gaining 6.5% in Amsterdam. On the other end of the scale, though, Kering dropping 6% in Paris. It reported drop in sales there, so taking a bit of a hit on coronavirus spending, dropping. US futures, however, pointing to a higher open. In currencies, I'm keeping a close eye on the Aussie dollar. It rallied today on record retail sales, currently up 0.8%. The Bloomberg dollar spot index is fairly flat. The yen gaining 0.2% at 107.5. Similarly so for the pound at 123. The euro range bound around 108. Over in the bond markets, 10-year treasuries holding around 57 basis points for the yield there. 10-year bund yields up a basis point at negative 46. 10-year gilt yields so gaining to 30 basis points. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Now here's Leanne Garrins with more on what's going on around the world.
Sandra, thank you. Coronavirus cases in Singapore have now exceeded 10,000. Most of these cases are in dormitories which house migrant workers. Singapore is now entering the third week of a partial lockdown it calls a circuit breaker. Social gatherings are banned and only essential businesses are allowed to operate. Top officials at the World Health Organization are being targeted by hackers. That's as they work on the global response to the coronavirus pandemic. Security teams at the WHO have seen an increasing number of attempted cyber attacks on the officials since mid-March. Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus has been a target. And Serbia is easing one of Europe's strictest coronavirus lockdown regimes. The country is allowing small businesses to reopen and is relaxing a daily curfew that had kept most citizens indoors since mid-March. In Croatia, citizens can now move within their country of residence, and Slovenia has also opened some businesses. The Greek Prime Minister will next week provide details on a plan for a return to normality. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Leanne Garrins. This is Bloomberg Naira.
Leanne, thank you so much. Now, the meltdown in oil markets continuing today. Brent crude at a 21-year low right now at $16 a barrel, down 11%. So coming off some of the lows from earlier. WTI, the June contract, at $11 a barrel, down 4.8%. Yesterday, oil ministers from the OPEC Plus coalition held an unscheduled conference call to discuss the collapse in prices, but did not settle on any new policy measures. For more, let's bring in Callum McPherson, head of commodities at Investec. Callum, great to have you on the show. Thank you so much for joining us. We're all aware with what happened with the May contract. We discussed it at length on the show yesterday. Some stunning moves, and we continue to see the slide in oil today on the WTI June contract and on Brent. Are negative prices on WTI going to become a regular feature every month towards the end of the contract?
Well, I think that's certainly a possibility. It really depends upon how things evolve in terms of the coronavirus and the lockdowns and so on over the next few weeks. In terms of US inventories, they obviously grew very sharply last week. We had the API estimate of inventories published last night, showing another build of 13 million barrels. We have the official figures, the IEA figures, out later today. So we'll see what they say. But the fact is, inventories are continuing to build very rapidly. And the main concrete measures that we have coming from OPEC Plus to try and address this situation, their cut of around 10 million barrels per day, does not start until May.
Callum, obviously the supply side is a big issue in terms of where you put the stuff, but what about the demand side? Because people are saying, well, hang on, if China is beginning to recover, can we look further forward, perhaps towards the second half of the year, and say that this could ease just through China coming back online?
Well, potentially, but the thing is, it is very much about the timing. The oversupply in the market. Usually in the market we're used to dealing with an oversupply of 1 or 2% of demand, something, these kinds of numbers, and that's enough to send the prices in quite wide ranges. But at the moment we're talking about an oversupply of 20% of demand. It's an absolutely extraordinary number. If you just look at, so as you say, China seems to be getting back to normal. So that's perhaps the first affected country to start to normalise. Then you look to Europe and the US. Currently, we're in lockdowns here in the US and across Europe. But there are signs, or there is a discussion about these lockdowns starting to ease in the coming weeks on the continent, maybe here in the middle of May, and then the US possibly following on behind that. But if we consider what the scale of the impact on demand is, so Europe and the US together are about 25 million barrels per day of demand. And let's assume that roughly half of that is online. We can afford to be quite broad-brushed, to be honest, because the numbers are so uncertain.
Yes.
So maybe that's 13 million barrels per day or so that is offline.
Okay, so Callum, we've only got 50 seconds left, but is there any level of supply cuts, say combined from OPEC and the US, that could provide a support to prices, a floor to them?
Well, I think the OPEC cut combined with another 5 million or so from non-OPEC countries would help support the market. But the problem is, of course, that the OPEC cut is not coming into force until May, and the G20 have not agreed to anything specific.
Callum McPherson, Head of Commodities at Investec. Great to have you with us. And WTI actually in positive territory right now, fluctuating around $12 a barrel. This is Bloomberg.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. It came as little surprise that Netflix added a record 15.8 million subscribers during the first quarter as shut-in viewers look to ride out the coronavirus quarantine. But Netflix knows it can't last. It sees about half as many subscribers in the second quarter. The company says it not only expects the growth to end as stay-at-home orders are lifted, it hopes the confinements end soon. But just in case you're running out of things to binge-watch, Warner Media says it will launch HBO Max on May 27th. It's on the pricey side, $14.99 a month. Warner Media hopes a deep library, including Game of Thrones and movies like The Dark Knight, will lure viewers. Stocks are coming off their worst losses in nearly 3 weeks. The Nasdaq led the main indexes lower with a 3.4% decline. Collapsing oil prices continue to weigh on the market, with June crude futures falling below $12 a barrel as the May contract expired. Larry Kofsky, Bloomberg Radio.
Are you interested in a challenging and exciting career? One where you can be part of solving complex challenges across industries and geographies? Bloomberg's ever-expanding technology, data, news, and media services foster innovation, empower clients, and offer nearly limitless opportunities for career growth. Visit Bloomberg.com/careers today to view our current job opportunities. Bloomberg LP is an equal opportunity employer. The address once again is Bloomberg.com/careers.
Who's in your corner? At Commonwealth Financial Network, our advisors would say we are. Our supportive environment lets you be true to yourself, and our culture of accountability means we don't just ask for your feedback. We act on it, so we can deliver the solutions you need to enrich the lives of your clients and build the business you've always dreamed of. Ready to discover the difference? Call Commonwealth at 866-462-3638 or visit commonwealth.com. Member FINRA SIPC, a registered investment advisor.
What? Okay, people, I've got the daily checklist. Who today has ignored a call on purpose? Tick. Talked yourself out of a workout? Tick. Spent far too long scrolling on your phone? Tick. Here's another for your list. BritBox. Streaming the BBC, ITV, Channel 5, and now Channel 4. All in one place and ad-free. So add BritBox to your list and get a 30-day free trial of the biggest box of British box sets. Search BritBox free trial. Tick. Biggest compared to other SVOD providers. Auto-renews at $5.99 a month unless cancelled. T's and C's apply.
This is a message from the government. Coronavirus is a national emergency. Life-threatening for people of all ages everywhere in the UK. To help save lives, stay home. Only go outside for food, health reasons, daily exercise, or to work. But only if you cannot work from home. Stay home. Anyone can get it, and anyone can spread it. Coronavirus. Stay home. Protect the NHS. Save lives.
The sports world is full of inspirational stories of heroic figures. It also has its fair share of shady characters. For detailed retellings of the darkest sagas in sports, explore TuneIn's documentary podcasts, like 30 for 30's The Sterling Affairs, about the scandalous life and times of the former Clippers owner, Donald Sterling, and Gladiator, which follows Aaron Hernandez's transformation from Super Bowl star to convicted murderer. For these and more, search sports documentaries on the TuneIn app.
In case you didn't know, TuneIn lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio, except you can hear them from anywhere. If you want to find a station from somewhere else in the world, navigate to the By Location section under Browse. Keep exploring with TuneIn.
Hey everyone, this is Chris Sproul from the First Draft Podcast. 2020 NFL Draft is on ESPN Radio on TuneIn. Starting Thursday, April 23rd, ESPN Radio has you covered with live coverage, discussions, and analysis of every pick from every round. Be there when the future stars of the NFL find their new home and when your team selects the players that will shape their future for seasons to come. Don't miss the biggest event of the offseason. It's live on TuneIn.
TuneIn makes it easy to be a part of the conversation. Just make sure push notifications are enabled to hear about breaking news and trending topics from around the sports world. You'll also get custom recommendations of podcasts and radio stations covering the sports and teams you care about.
Broadcasting live to London on DAB digital radio, to New York, Bloomberg 1130, to Washington DC, Bloomberg 99.1, to Boston, Bloomberg 106.1, to San Francisco, Bloomberg 960, and around the globe, the Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Daybreak Europe.
8:30 a.m. in London, 9:30 if you're listening in Paris, Frankfurt or Brussels. Good morning, everyone. I'm Naira Chehich.
And I'm Roger Hearing, and you're listening to Bloomberg Daybreak Europe.
Roger, we're 30 minutes into the equity market open, but I'm going to start with oil because, of course, that's what's caught all the market's attention over the past couple of days after the WTI May contract went negative for the first time ever this week. The June contract right now trading at $11.69 a barrel. We're actually up 1.3%, so I don't really want to call that a rebound, maybe just a little stabilization, if anything. Brent, meanwhile, down more than 8%, just below $18 a barrel. We have hit a 21-year low on the Brent price. Now, we saw the meltdown in oil markets reverberate across other markets yesterday. The S&P 500 was lower by 3%. If we look at equities today and we look at European equities 30 minutes into the stock market open, the Stock 600 is up more than 1% right now, so we are rebounding after dropping more than 3% on that benchmark yesterday. The FTSE 100 up 1.2%, the CAC 40 up 0.6%, the DAX higher by 1.3%, IBEX and FTSE MIB also firmly in the green. US futures were fluctuating a lot overnight in the Asian session, but firmly in the green now. Dow and S&P E-minis up 0.9%. So that's on those futures. NASDAQ futures higher by more than 1%. The 10-year yield was slipping overnight. It's steady now, but still below a 60 handle, 58 basis points. The 10-year Bund yield edges up a basis point. So does the 10-year gilt yield, 10-year BTP yield, slipping just 2 basis points after jumping 21 yesterday. We're on a 213 handle for that. And in terms of FX, the dollar giving up some of the gains from earlier. And interestingly, if you look at G10, the Aussie is outperforming. The CAD also one of the outperformers, which is interesting given the sustained weakness that we're seeing in oil prices. Roger.
Right, thanks. Let's go on to some of today's top stories, and we start with what's been our lead story, of course, this week, the wild swings in the oil markets you were mentioning there. Now, Brent crude's tumbled to the lowest level in almost 21 years. That comes after a sell-off saw prices in New York turn negative for the first time ever. Concerns over crude storage capacity are fueling the rout. And yesterday, OPEC and its allies held an unscheduled conference call, but a closing statement signalled they didn't reach any deal on curbing output.
Yeah, and when it comes to stockpiles, I mean, we've got the API data showing a rise, Roger. We'll get the government data later on those US oil inventories, but also as to how it translates to other markets. It's interesting because Jim McCormick at NatWest Markets said that oil prices are exaggerating the level of global weakness, equity markets exaggerating the potential for recovery. He says they're both wrong as global growth guide. So you start to ask yourself, what is, in terms of asset prices, a good guide for global growth at the moment? And some people say it's very difficult to find one given a lot of the market dislocations that we're seeing.
Yeah, and of course those market dislocations due to, in many ways, to what's going on with the fight against the virus. And turning to the latest virus news, here in the UK, the Health Secretary has announced a dramatic step forward in the search for a vaccine. Matt Hancock said 2 British projects are making fast progress.
The vaccine from the Oxford project will be trialled in people from this Thursday. In normal times, reaching this stage would take years.
Oxford University and Imperial College London are being given more than £40 million in total by the government for all this. More than 800 people are reported to have died from the virus in the UK in the latest figures. Hospitals on Monday showed a sharp increase from prior days.
In top corporate news, French fashion company Kering is giving a cautious assessment of rebounding luxury sales in China. That follows a, quote, deep impact for its flagship Gucci brand in the first quarter. Globally, first quarter sales fell 16% amid the coronavirus pandemic. Sales in mainland China turned positive again in April.
And in other company news, Netflix has posted its strongest financial results in the company's history. It added a record 15.8 million paid subscribers. That's almost double what Wall Street had estimated. But executives warned investors not to get too excited. Netflix has benefited, of course, from people staying at home during the coronavirus pandemic, but there's no telling how long that boom will last.
Yeah, interestingly, though, they also had high levels of free cash flow, and that is something that investors are, of course, watching during this time, Roger. Now, meanwhile, in Europe, Roche has this morning confirmed its outlook. The Swiss drug maker's Actemra is being used as treatment against the coronavirus, and that helped boost sales to 15.14 billion Swiss francs above estimates, Roger.
And earlier, the Roche CEO, Severin Schwan, spoke to Bloomberg.
Antibody tests are very important in the fight of this coronavirus pandemic for two reasons. First, they help us to better understand how infections develop in a certain population. And secondly, there is good reason to believe that antibody tests show you whether you have developed immunity after you have been infected. As far as Roche is concerned, we will launch a highly reliable test at the beginning of May. And the good news is, due to this technology, we will be able to ramp up testing very quickly to the high double millions of tests already by June.
Severin Schwan, good morning to you. It's Anna in London, and sitting here in London, I'm aware that many governments have spent money already on antibody tests that proved not to work. What sets yours apart? What is different about the Roche antibody test that means it will be worth buying?
Human beings, we all develop different antibodies for all kind of coronaviruses. So it is very important to pick the right test and then to validate those tests with enough patients. And unfortunately, there is a number of tests already out there in the market which are not reliable simply because they haven't been tested sufficiently. That's also why it took us a little bit of time to launch our own test, because we had to find the right antibody test. We had to test it and validate it with enough patients. But from the data, we now know that we are able to bring such a reliable, precise test to the market very soon.
Severin, with the molecular testing, there have been bottlenecks that really fouled things up. Not enough Q-tips around, reagents hard to find. Are you going to see, or are you concerned about bottlenecks like that holding back, scaling up of these antibody tests?
For antibody tests, which is a proven technology which is widely adopted, scale-up will be much easier. Molecular diagnostics is much more complicated, and indeed the supply is limited. This will be different for antibody tests. So over time, I'm very confident that the industry, not only us, also some of our peers, will be able to meet demand.
Why is the vaccine taking so long? Now not expected maybe until later in 2021. What's holding back that development?
Well, typically the development of a vaccine takes several years. Now, companies who are involved in the development of vaccines, which we are not as a company, they would tell you that it takes at least 12 to 18 months to bring out a vaccine. I personally think this is very ambitious. You do not only have to develop the vaccine, you have to test it sufficiently with patients, and then importantly, it has to be ramped up. Again, if you compare to how long it took in the past, 12 to 18 months seems a very ambitious timeline to me.
And that was the Roche CEO, Severin Schwan, speaking to Bloomberg's Anna Edwards and Matt Miller. How's it doing for Roche's share price?
We're up about 1% on Roche right now, Roger. So we're looking at 5 days of gains. Let's go to the world news now with Leanne Gerrans. Hi, Leanne.
Naira, good morning. We start here in the UK. The government is insisting there was no political decision to reject an EU-wide procurement scheme for PPE and ventilators, vital equipment to fight coronavirus. The top civil servant at the Foreign Office, Simon MacDonald, has apologised after wrongly telling a committee of MPs there was a deliberate move not to join the project.
All I can say is, as a matter of fact, we have not taken part.
Maybe I could ask, what was your policy advice on it, or was it a political decision?
It was a political decision.
Meanwhile, MacDonald also wrote to the committee afterwards, admitting there was a communication problem and the UK actually missed the European Union's invite after an email mix-up. Now, staying in Europe, France reported the number of patients in intensive care due to the coronavirus outbreak fell to the lowest levels in 3 weeks. This comes as new deaths linked to the virus declined from a day earlier. France on Monday became the fourth country to report more than 20,000 fatalities from the pandemic, behind Italy, Spain and the US. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa has unveiled a $26 billion plan to revive the economy, which has been brought to a near standstill by the coronavirus crisis. Bloomberg's Paul Richardson has the details.
The package, equivalent to about 10% of GDP, includes 200 billion rand to be used to guarantee bank loans to distressed businesses. Another 100 billion rand will go to protecting and creating jobs, with the remainder going to other programs, including increased welfare grants. Ramaphosa also reiterated that the lockdown in South Africa will be removed in a phased approach. In Johannesburg, Paul Richardson, Bloomberg Daybreak Europe.
Global news 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. I'm Leanne Gerrans. This is Bloomberg.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting a Teenager. Learning the lingo.
GOAT, G-O-A-T, acronym, stands for Greatest of All Time. As in, spaghetti sandwiches for dinner? They're my fave. Dad, you're the GOAT.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same. Visit adoptuskids.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
Witham offers private equity expertise to address the advisory, audit, and tax needs of your fund's portfolio companies.
Hi, I'm Bill Hageman, Witham's proud CEO. Witham's private equity specialists understand the unique challenges facing PE firms. We work hand in hand with sponsors and their portfolio companies to help maximize the value of their investments with our world-class advisory, audit, and tax solutions, and industry expertise in key growth sectors such as healthcare, manufacturing, and real estate.
Visit witham.com/PE for more information.
Asset managers who seize change to launch new strategies, add distribution channels, or exploit new technology to re-engineer the investor experience are often rewarded. However, in an industry paralyzed with complexity, few act with agility or decisively. Few run their business strategically. Yet, the most competitive managers in the market know, with the right partner and a flexible operating platform, you can. Go boldly toward change with SEI Investment Manager Services.
I'm Steve Meyer, president of SEI's Investment Manager Services. At SEI, we understand the emerging forces that will define success for asset managers and what firms will need to compete tomorrow. That's why we continually optimize SEI's global operating platform. If your business requires greater agility, our advanced technology, integrated best-in-class systems, and multi-asset expertise can be your catalyst for business transformation.
With SEI Investment Manager Services, you lead the charge in a competitive marketplace. Learn more at SEIC.com/seize change.
Okay, people, I've got the daily checklist. Who today has eaten dinner for breakfast? Tick. Started a chore you'll never finish? Tick. Done a conference call in your pajamas? Tick. Here's another for your list. BritBox. Streaming the BBC, ITV, Channel 5, and now Channel 4. All in one place and ad-free. So add BritBox to your list and get a 30-day free trial of the biggest box of British box sets. Search BritBox free trial. Tick. Biggest compared to other SVOD providers. Auto-renews at $5.99 a month unless cancelled. T's and C's apply.
Where will 2020 take you? Somewhere where people care. About each other. About our planet. About creating a better world for everyone. And becoming the best versions of yourselves. Join a community of like-minded individuals at the University of Winchester. Make sure to accept your offer by the UCAS deadline and visit our website to find out more. See the bigger picture. Be the difference. Go to winchester.ac.uk.
I'm Mel Kiper Jr., and to get you ready for the NFL Draft, you can listen to my podcast, First Draft, as Todd McShay, Chris Sproul, and I highlight all the top picks and give you the analysis you need leading up to the draft. Just search ESPN Radio today.
You love TuneIn for live-breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
With millions of podcasts dropping new episodes all the time, how do you keep up with all your favorites? TuneIn makes it easy. Simply head to the home screen and find your new episode section to see the latest additions.
A social distancing tip.
Putting distance between yourself and others is critical to slowing the spread of coronavirus. So here are ways to stay in contact without the physical contact part. Call, send a text, set up a video conference, post on social media, dedicate a song on the radio. If you have symptoms of fever, dry cough, and shortness of breath, call your healthcare provider before going to their office. For more info, visit coronavirus.gov.
Let's all do our part, because we're all #AloneTogether. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Be part of the college sports conversation on TuneIn. Hear the latest storylines around SEC football with the Paul Feinbaum Show.
I distinctly remember when you were hired, and I must say most of us thought you were out of your mind. Giving up, I wouldn't call it a cush job because you were traveling across the country.
Get your college hoops fix with college basketball talk on NBC Sports.
Headed by Shabazz Napier. That also included Amita Brima, who is in and around the NBA ranks right now, and DeAndre Daniels, who was the 37th pick in the 2014 NBA draft. So my question to you is...
Or listen to the daily news from around the wide world of college football with College Football Live.
I would go with Utah. I think Utah is the better team. And I know I'm talking to an Oklahoma guy, but listen, and it may be recency bias having watched Utah last week and doing that game, but I just think they're a more complete football.
Discover these and more college sports podcasts right here on TuneIn. Be part of the sports conversation with Sports Talk Radio on TuneIn. Join the discussion around your favorite local teams with sports stations broadcasting in your area.
The game will be 185 to 183, and somebody wins, whatever. Football, it's either full go or it's not. You got it's thud. I can practice what they call.
Follow national storylines and debates with ESPN Radio.
Does the NBA have a hiring problem when it comes to front office jobs in the leagues and a minority hiring issue? Stephen A. chimed in on that today on First Take.
It also resonates with me, Max. You can appreciate this position. One of the candidates was Brian Colangelo. We know what happened. I like Brian, but we know.
And hear what's happening worldwide with international channels like Talk Sport.
Seems as I'm sort of doing my life in reverse at the moment. I was on cricket tours when I was 20 years old, and now I'm 31. I'm sat at home injured playing PlayStation. So it's a tournament basically where you create your own character.
In your backyard and around the globe. Keep your finger on the pulse of the sports world with TuneIn.
Headlines and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on QuickTake by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Good morning from London. I'm Sandra Kilhoff with this Bloomberg Business Flash, and I'm kicking off with oil again today. We did see Brent fall to a 21-year low earlier, but now recouping a bit of those losses and currently down about 9.5%, trading around $17.50 a barrel. Meanwhile, WTI's June contract fluctuating around $11.50, so somewhere between minus and plus at the moment. Quite interesting moves there. OPEC Plus did have a call yesterday, but didn't manage to agree on any new policy measures. So that has been dragging on energy stocks in particular. But when it comes to sectors, what I'm really watching today is pharma and tech stocks. Both sectors rallying. This in part because of some stronger than expected earnings out of the likes of Roche and AkzoNobel. Ericsson also surprising a bit to the upside, and that is why we're seeing those stocks performing well today. The Stock 600 gaining 1%, similarly so for the FTSE. The DAX up 1.2% at the moment. In currencies, I'm watching the Aussie dollar gaining 0.9% on the back of record retail sales out earlier this morning. The Bloomberg dollar spot index is fairly flat. The yen gaining 0.2% to 107.6. Sterling also bid at 123. The euro holding around 108. In the bond markets, 10-year treasury yields are are fairly range-bound at the moment. Actually gaining now up 2 basis points to 59 basis points. If we look at the 10-year bund yield doing a similar move up 3 basis points to negative 45, 10-year gilt yields at 32 basis points. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Now here's Dan Garens with more on what's going on around the world.
Sandra, thank you. An RAF plane carrying badly needed personal protective equipment for NHS staff, including 400,000 surgical gowns, has finally arrived here in the UK. It was due to deliver much needed equipment on Sunday, but after delays, the Air Force sent a plane to Turkey to collect it. Health Secretary Matt Hancock says he's determined to get medical staff the safety equipment they need. Global coronavirus cases have topped 2.5 million globally, and deaths have exceeded 175,000, according to Johns Hopkins University data. Europe is slowly opening up. Italy will present a plan this week to ease its rigid lockdown, joining Germany, France and Austria in pursuing a gradual return to normality. Yesterday, Italy reported an almost equal number of virus recoveries and new infections for the first time. And Munich's famed Oktoberfest folk and beer festival has been cancelled for the first time since World War II. It's the latest event to fall victim of the coronavirus outbreak and a blow to the Bavarian capital's economy. Large public gatherings have been banned in Germany until at least the end of August. Global news 24 hours a day on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Jan Gerens. This is Bloomberg Naira.
Leanne, thank you so much. Now let's turn to our guest for the rest of the hour. And joining myself and Roger, we have Burkhart Van Holt, Deputy Global Chief Investment Officer at Credit Suisse. Great to have you with us, Burkhart. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. So as we look at the meltdown that we've seen in oil prices, Brent hitting a 21-year low, the WTI June contract also extending losses, even if we stabilise a little bit today. I noticed that on one of your weekly focuses, you were positive on high-yield credits, and this was out on April the 20th. Is that a view that you might change in the US if we continue to see a meltdown in oil prices that feeds into high yield?
Well, I mean, it's remarkable to see to what extent the US Fed has decided to backstop the credit market, even those which are no longer rated BBB, but which were rated BBB at the time of the U.S. Fed expressing the willingness to support the high-yield Treasury market. And let's make no mistake, this historic meltdown in the oil market is going to just rapidly fast forward a consolidation period like no other. What we're likely to see, because of all the mess that clash between Riyadh and Moscow, leaving the taps on also among all U.S. oil and energy explorers, what all this mess is causing is a frantic consolidation necessity. And essentially, our view is investors will be looking to sort their stakes, be it in bonds or in stocks, into three groups: the losers, the survivors, and the thrivers. And like always in life, you'll find some in all of these buckets. Also, well, let me pick up on that, Burkhart, because who are the thrivers in this? Because it's quite hard to see in some ways. Well, I know it sounds like a euphemism to talk about thrivers when oil is cheaper than water. But the reality is the big integrated, capital-rich, cash flow-rich oil majors have the ability to sail through the storm and to pick up what they couldn't have possibly picked up in the last 10 years. So while they don't look like thrivers right here, right now, wait for another year or two, and then they may.
Burkhart, to go back to what you were saying about high yield and what you were sort of implying about the support that the Fed is giving to that market. Interestingly, I was reading a comment from someone on Twitter yesterday. It was actually Andreas Steno Larsen at Nordea, and he was saying that oil is the only asset that's actually accurately reflecting the state of global growth because every other asset is rigged by central banks. Now, I then saw a comment by Jim McCormick at NatWest Markets this morning where he said that oil prices are exaggerating the level of global weakness, equity markets exaggerating the potential for recovery. Which asset class, which market are you looking to as a good signal of global growth right now? Or is there none because of the dislocation?
Well, I think, both views deserve merit. Yes, you can argue that oil reflects the lockdown. Sure, there's no doubt, no arguing with that. But the reality is stocks and bonds reflect arguably better than spot oil prices what the world economy may be doing 2 or 3 quarters from here. And interestingly enough, when you look at the oil futures curve, that in a similar way anticipates something of a U-type recovery, as we can clearly see. I mean, Mad Monday in oil markets was entirely focused on the short end, right now, right here, of the oil market, the spot market, for a rather embarrassing lack of inventory.
So, Burkhard, I mean, looking at that U-curve you're talking about, U-shaped recovery, which you think does tend to be suggested by certain factors, what's the duration of that? What's the time scale we're talking about here?
Oh, good question. So, let's say the U-shaped recovery, I would expect it to become quite visible in the fourth quarter of this year, and then lead us through the first 3 quarters of next year. Not so much in the third quarter yet, because this recovery will come in 2 phases. First, supply will go back on stream, so restaurants will open, hotels will open, but nobody will be using them. And then once they've offered enough discounts, and because humans are sociable, we'll go back to have dinner in a restaurant, we'll fly to a nice place, use an airline, a hotel, and so forth. But that will come after supply has gone on first. So late 2020 and the first 3 quarters of 2021.
Okay, so what do you do now in the portfolio to anticipate for that then, Burkhard?
Good question. Look, I'll give you my very simple advice. First and foremost, managing money is about strategy, it's about diversification. This crisis has told us what we always knew. Having said that, just as a general caveat, when you feel, or if you feel, the worst lies behind you, volatility may still remain high, you shouldn't be too clever about trying to time the market, because nobody can pick the bottom at the bottom and the top at the top. It just isn't something that works sustainably. So rather than trying to pick bottoms and tops, add to your long-term strategy. And at this point in the market, I could well see that we'll see pullbacks for all the good reasons we all know. And I'm inclined, and we are inclined to use pullbacks to add to risk assets, that is global equities, high-yield emerging market hard currency bonds, expecting these assets to be lifted further, if only by investors' realization that real bond yields may be much lower, much longer than we would all like them to be.
Very interesting. Thank you so much for joining us today, Burkhard van Hol, Deputy Global Chief Investment Officer at Credit Suisse. Great to have you with us on the show. And after the oil meltdown that hit equities, we're seeing some green on the screen today. This is Bloomberg.
In the world of finance...
Okay, people, I've got the daily checklist. Who today has ignored a call on purpose? Tick. Talked yourself out of a workout. Tick. Spent far too long scrolling on your phone. Tick. Here's another for your list. BritBox. Streaming the BBC, ITV, Channel 5 and now Channel 4. All in one place and ad-free. So add BritBox to your list and get a 30-day free trial of the biggest box of British box sets. Search BritBox free trial. Tick. Biggest compared to other SVOD providers. Auto-renews at $5.99 a month unless cancelled. T's and C's apply.
Where will 2020 take you? Somewhere where people care. About each other. About our planet. About creating a better world for everyone. And becoming the best versions of yourselves. Join a community of like-minded individuals at the University of Winchester. Make sure to accept your offer by the UCAS deadline and visit our website to find out more. See the bigger picture. Be the difference. Go to winchester.ac.uk.
Typical Danny. Last night I was chilling with my girls, but ended up spilling my Chardonnay all over my fave lilac nightie when I saw the photo I was tagged in. State of my fake tan. But no worries, just one wash and my clothes will smell perf with Surf. Surf gives you long-lasting fragrance with natural essential oils. Find your fragrance in Surf's laundry range.
4 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio.
This is Bloomberg Daybreak Europe.
External pressure is going to be an opportunity for reform in China. I think liquidity more generally across financial markets is an issue and a concern.
The Spanish banks in particular are in a much better place than they were 5 years ago.
It wouldn't be great to have a drawn-out trade conflict with the US or indeed with anybody else.
I've never been one to prophesy where sterling will be, and you're a madman if you think you can.
Bloomberg Daybreak Europe on Bloomberg Radio.
A very good morning from London. I'm Caroline Hepker.
And from Bloomberg's Bureau in Berlin, I'm Matt Miller. You're listening to Daybreak Europe on London DAB Digital Radio.
So, Matt, we've got virus cases in Europe easing. A lot of countries starting to ease lockdown, or they have dates in place. We've got a special edition of Brussels edition coming in a few minutes' time. Maria Tadeo is going to be speaking to the former ECB President Vittorio Constantino and also the former Italian Prime Minister Enrico Letta. I think they're going to be very interesting conversations.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to that. In terms of what's going on in the markets today, let me just give you a quick data check. We run through the numbers for you every 15 minutes here on Bloomberg Radio. We are looking at gains across European equity indexes, with the Stoxx 50 up 0.9%, as is the FTSE 100 in London, currently gaining 52 points to 56.93. On the continent, you've got stronger gains, certainly on the DAX, more than 1% right now. The FTSE MIB also up more than 1%, as is the AAX and the OMX, as are the AAX and the OMX. So we're looking at 1% gains most places on the continent. The CAC currently up, though, only about 0.5% right now, not doing as well as others. Investors feel comfortable enough to sell treasuries, bonds, and gilts. Treasury yields right now at 0.586. Bonds are yielding negative 45 basis points, and gilts are yielding 31. Also, the yen a little bit stronger against the dollar. You can get 107.6 yen for your dollar right now. And the pound a little bit stronger against the dollar, although it's still at a relatively low level. 123.33 is the price on cable. Let me just give you the oil check, because we've seen Brent really dragged into the WTI crash. And right now, Brent crude is trading for $17.38. So still at a pretty low level, not as low as it has been earlier today. We've seen Brent crude really come down today. But WTI, NYMEX WTI, is currently trading at $11.48. So this is, of course, the June contract, no longer the May contract. And there's a ton of volume on it today as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, should we talk about that major market meltdown? Because, as you say, Brent crude traded close to a 21-year low today, so at $17 at the moment. Yesterday, all ministers from OPEC Plus and the coalition, they did hold an unscheduled conference, but they didn't settle on any new policy measures. And even the cut that they made earlier this month, that doesn't actually come into effect until May. So let's go to our guest this hour, Harry Chilingurian, head of commodity research at BNP Paribas, just to talk us through the markets right now. So the June contract, the trouble that we've seen for WTI very much has hit Europe this morning. How much lower do you think we're going to go? How long term is this enormous drop in oil prices?
I think right now, good morning. I think right now there's growing sentiment in the market that supply is just simply not falling fast enough. And in as much as you have indicated, OPEC Plus has agreed a production reduction of historic proportion, minus 9.7 million barrels per day for the May-June period. That is really only going to come into effect in May. And even at that, we're looking at probably some barrels that were committed for May prior to the decision. So a real reduction on a voluntary basis by OPEC Plus is probably going to happen more towards the end of May and early June. At the same time, in the U.S., we're also waiting for production declines. And I think the market is now settling into a view that the oil price needs to be lower to force the rebalancing of the market through production curtailment. And that's where we stand today.
What about demand, Harry? When do we see demand coming back?
I think when it comes to demand and the recovery of demand more globally, it's really going to be down to when the confinement measures and social distancing measures are lifted. In essence, you have a lot of pent-up demand as a result of these measures. And when we see these measures being lifted, then economic activity will be reinstated, also reinforced with the massive stimulus measures that governments have been put in place and all that. However, it really depends on the timing of the lifting of these measures. So when you get the economy opened up again, that's when demand is going to come back. So I guess, if I were to look at it, positively, I would say sometime during Q3, where we will have a sufficient amount of restrictions lifted in order to get that economic recovery reinstated and, of course, oil demand as a result.
I want to pick you up on the idea that there'll be less supply out of the US, obviously a key producer now. The Trump administration saying that they want to try to preserve jobs, rescue the oil industry, give them access to lending programs, expand oil storage, for example. So we have to balance that with perhaps some shale producers not being able to make it. How do you see that going forwards?
I think there's been an evolution in the administration's policy. As you recall, at the beginning, the administration wanted to buy oil from U.S. producers. To put it in the Strategic Petroleum Reserve was denied funding by Congress. Then they floated the idea of paying producers to keep oil in the ground. And I think now we're looking at a different issue in terms of preserving jobs, really. And that's different, really, from preserving production. So I think in as much as the administration will make efforts in this sector, which is an important sector of the U.S. economy, in terms of job conservation, it may not impact the inevitable decline in production that's going to happen just by the sheer amount of rigs that have been idled over the past 3 weeks.
How hard is it, by the way, Harry, to shut down? Can you just stop pumping oil today and then start up again next Wednesday, or is it a more complicated process?
It really depends the type of oil you're looking at. So there are some reservoirs that are extremely complex in terms of their formations. You don't want to simply stop them because you run into pressure issues that could collapse a reservoir, and then you can't restart the field. In other cases, it's certainly a little bit more easier. So if you were to take U.S. shale oil, it's a little bit like a contestable market, as economists would say. Entry and exit costs are not so large that you could get out of it and go back in. Compare that to, say, Canadian oil sands or deepwater offshore production. There's a lot of sunk capital. So before making that decision in terms of shutting down production, you're going to wait a long time, even though the revenue you get from oil doesn't cover your costs, but it's certainly better than having to spend billions in decommissioning.
Okay, very interesting. What about China as a player? We have talked in the past when we did see oil begin to slip that China would sort of suck up some of the glut, as it were. But it doesn't seem like they're going to do that now, though.
Well, I think that's certainly a fair historical representation. China is proactive in replenishing on commodities generally. We saw that after the great financial recession when the commodity prices are low. So to an extent, I think China has already been buying oil for strategic reserves. The real issue is just the magnitude of the supply surplus on the market. And it's not going to be China's SPR alone that's going to be able to absorb that. So even if they are buying and topping up on their reserves, the problem at large is the fact that we just simply have too much production in relation to the storage capacity globally that's still available.
All right, Harry, great to get some time with you. Thanks so much for joining us today. Harry Schillingurian, their head of commodity research at BNP Paribas. Actually, let me just quickly, one more question, Harry, because I noticed today a long list of commodities that are dropping in prices drastically. Zinc, I think platinum, palladium, coffee, milk. Do you see this really across commodities?
I guess not all commodities, since certain commodities are benefiting from the uncertainty of the current economic situation and the monetary stimulus. You look at gold, for example, so some of the precious metals. But broadly, when you look at industrial commodities, and we were mentioning China a little bit earlier, even if China were to come out of its lockdown and restart plants, there's only so far that they could go as their export markets, right, are still in lockdown, Europe and the U.S. So generally speaking, and we're back to the question earlier about when does oil demand recover, I think the broader question becomes when does demand for industrial commodities recover? And that's really, again, back to the lifting of restrictions and reinstating economic activity. So all that pent-up demand gets released. And finally, I guess to conclude today, we've been talking about storage as well. We have U.S. weekly oil statistics, and we're going to be keeping a close eye on those inventories at Cushing. Yesterday, the API indicated that these crude stocks at Cushing had grown by 5 million barrels per day. 5 million barrels, roughly. Cushing has a nameplate capacity of around 76 million barrels, so we're getting close to those limits. I think that's going to be certainly an interesting thing to watch this afternoon.
Absolutely. Harry, thanks so much for the reminder. Harry Schillingurian there, head of commodity research at BNP Paribas.
Yeah, really interesting. Right, here in the UK, virtual parliament restarts today. No prime minister at the helm. He's still recovering from coronavirus. Let's get some more details in world and national news with Bloomberg's Leanne Gerrans. Good morning, Leanne.
Caroline, good morning. And we do start here in the UK. Human trials of coronavirus vaccine produced by Oxford University will begin today. As Bloomberg's Charles Capel explains, the country is pinning its hopes on being the first to develop a working product.
UK Health Secretary Matt Hancock said the advantages of being first to develop a vaccine are so huge that he's willing to throw everything he has at it. For Oxford University, that means £20 million of public funding. Prime Minister Boris Johnson, who is still recovering from being hospitalised by the virus, held a phone call with US President Donald Trump to discuss the pandemic, one of his first known acts since his stay in intensive care. More than 800 people were reported to have died from the virus in UK hospitals on Monday, confirming the country is still amongst the worst affected in Europe. In London, Charles Capel, Bloomberg Daybreak Europe.
Meanwhile, as Caroline did mention, the government is set for its first major political test of the pandemic. A virtual parliament will see a prime minister's questions via video conference today, with most MPs taking part remotely. With the prime minister still out of action, Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab will be in the chamber itself, standing in for Boris Johnson and facing the new Labour Party leader, Keir Starmer. And in an update to the virus spread in Europe, recoveries in Italy almost exceeded new cases for the first time yesterday, and Germany reported the smallest increase in infections this month. Meanwhile, France saw the number of patients in intensive care fall to the lowest in 3 weeks, while new deaths declined. Bloomberg's Anya Nussbaum has more.
Fatalities rose by around 500 to more than 20,700 deaths. The epidemic has slowed down thanks to confinement and social distancing measures. But it's unclear how long hospitals will hold on as France prepares to progressively lift the restrictions from May 11th. In Paris, Anya Nussbaum, Bloomberg Daybreak Europe.
And President Trump says he doesn't know how Kim Jong-un is doing. He told reporters he may reach out to the North Korean leader. U.S. officials say they were told Kim was in a critical condition after cardiovascular surgery. That was last week. Meanwhile, South Korea says Kim was conducting normal activities. Mystery surrounding that. Global news 24 hours a day on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. Powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Leanne Gerrans. This is Bloomberg. Caroline.
Thank you so much, Leanne Gerrans, with the World News Update. Now, coming up on Bloomberg Daybreak, we have a special Brussels edition for you. Bloomberg's Maria Tadeo is speaking to the former ECB President Vittorio Constantio and the former Italian Prime Minister Enrico Letta. That is coming up next. You cannot not listen to those conversations. This is Bloomberg live from London and Brussels today.
25 years ago, NJIT graduate Dick Sweeney co-founded Keurig Green Mountain, a company whose incredible innovations changed the way the world brews a cup of coffee. Today, he lectures widely on business leadership and is a strong advocate for NJIT's work to combine business education with the power of STEM.
NJIT is definitely fostering the innovative thinking for budding entrepreneurs simply because that's the world we live in. NJIT is producing students that have been trained, educated, and given the business acumen to be a contributor to a company. The distinct mission is to develop great STEM scholars. The attributes I've always looked for in team members are heart, smarts, guts, and luck. So we want people with passion, intelligence, courage, and never discount luck. The student coming out of NJIT has experienced all of that.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology. Learn more at njit.edu.
GEP, AI-powered cloud-native digital transformation. Hundreds of Fortune 500 and Global 2000 companies work with GEP to transform their procurement and supply chain operations. Why? GEP's unified digital platforms, smart, intuitive software that business users love, drive up adoption, user satisfaction, and productivity. GEP helps CIOs drive real digital transformation and achieve amazing results. GEP, helping the world's best companies do better.
Hi, I'm Danica Patrick. Watching my nieces grow, play, and learn is amazing, but not every child gets to be carefree. 1 in 6 kids in the U.S. are hungry. This breaks my heart, and it's something that Feeding America is working to change. Each year, the Feeding America network of food banks rescues billions of pounds of good food that would have gone to waste and gives it to families in need. To help, visit feedingamerica.org.
Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Influential conversations from Bloomberg Television. Here's Heidi Stroud-Watts.
Let's discuss all of this and the prospects for markets. Orient Advisor Solutions Chief Investment Officer Rusty Vanneman is with us. Rusty, great to have you. Let's start off with oil first. Are we going to see a broader impact of just the turmoil that we're seeing? Because, of course, you know, May, you can call that the May contract a little bit of a technical blip, right, to the extreme. But we're already seeing that amount of volatility carry through to the June contract now as well. So at what point do we see a much bigger impact across all risk assets?
I mean, the moves, the markets each and every day seem to be surprising with some extraordinary volatility. And obviously what happened in the oil markets, the energy markets yesterday and today is just incredible. Obviously, it's a combination. We've already had oversupply. We've had oversupply for a while. That's why there's been pressure on the energy complex. Demand has plummeted, as we know. Gas demand is off 50%. We know airline travel is off 95%. It is definitely a concern for other risk assets. I am hopeful, and some of the things that I was looking at myself today is I was really worried the corporate bond market would get hit a lot harder. It didn't. I thought energy prices themselves would get hit a lot harder relative to other parts of the market. Obviously, they were down, but on a relative terms, they held up. I think those were encouraging signs.
Hear more interviews like this one on Bloomberg Television, streaming live on Bloomberg.com and on the Bloomberg mobile app, or check your local cable listings.
Markets, headlines and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on QuickTake by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg's world headquarters in New York City, I'm Anne-Marie Hodern with this Bloomberg Radio Business Flash. Good morning. U.S. futures advancing on the front foot. The S&P 500 mini contract up 1%. It comes after yesterday. The S&P closed down more than 3%. Stock 600 also higher, up 1% this morning. Getting a boost from technology and telecom shares this morning. I want to move over to the oil market because panic continues. The June contract, which just became the front month on WTI, trading at $11. Brent, though, suffering down nearly 10% this morning, $17.44 a barrel. Citi warned if global storage worsens more quickly, Brent crude could chase WTI down to the bottom, and we are seeing global storage really start to not exacerbate the situation right now. Pierre Andron told me yesterday, a renowned trader, said deep negative prices can be seen for a short while. In the FX market this morning, a bit of softer on the U.S. dollar. We are seeing a bit higher on the British pound against the U.S. dollar. Euro relatively flat, though, as well. And then in the U.S. Treasury market, we are seeing a lot of fluctuation on the 10-year yield below 0.6%. The yield right now, 0.59%. That's a Bloomberg Radio Business Flash. Now here's Leanne Garens with more on what's going on around the world. Good morning, Leanne.
Good morning, Anne-Marie, and thank you. An RAF plane carrying badly needed personal protective equipment for NHS staff, including 400,000 surgical gowns, has finally arrived here in the UK. It was due to be delivered on Sunday, but after delays, the Air Force sent a plane to Turkey to collect the equipment. Health Secretary Matt Hancock says he's determined to get medical staff the safety protection they need. Now, the governor of Tokyo is considering new restrictions at supermarkets. Stores may be asked to limit the number of customers who can enter. Shoppers also may be told to keep their distance when lining up. Japan has avoided an explosive surge in coronavirus cases, but a steady rise in the last month forced the government to declare a state of emergency. Top officials at the World Health Organization are being targeted by hackers. That's as they work on the global response to the coronavirus pandemic. Security teams at the WHO have seen an increasing number of attempted cyber attacks on the officials since mid-March. Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus has been a target. And Munich's famed Oktoberfest folk and beer festival has been cancelled for the first time since World War II. It's the latest major event to fall victim of the coronavirus outbreak and a blow to the Bavarian capital's economy. Germany has banned large public gatherings until at least the end of August. Yesterday, Germany reported the smallest increase in infections this month. Global News 24 hours a day on air and on QuickTake by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Leanne Gerens. This is Bloomberg.
This is the Brussels edition, Bloomberg's briefing on what matters most in the European Union this week.
Well, welcome to the special episode of the Brussels edition. I'm Maria Tadeo, and tomorrow European leaders will be headed into a crucial, potentially very heated summit. Emmanuel Macron, the French president, sees a moment of truth for the European Union. That may require breaking old dogmas around joint debt, but the question is, will Germany play ball? Now, joining me now, I'm happy to say, is Victor Costancio, the former vice president of the European Central Bank. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Maria.
Good morning. So my first question to you, really looking into the price action that we're seeing in the market, you've seen the BTP yields have climbed again. There's a lot of nerves on that market this week. Do you think that is ultimately pushing Italy closer to tapping into the ESM? There's a lot of debate on that.
Yes, there is a lot of debate, and it is, of course, for the Italian authorities to decide. It seems to me that the present conditions offered to the ESM loan make it not very attractive for basically two reasons. First, because it's very shortly renewed twice by 6 months only, and countries are paying quite small yields for such maturities. And the second reason is because then many countries will not use this facility because they are paying negative rates right now, and that means that it confirms the idea that the ESM is just for vulnerable countries, and then there is a certain degree of stigma and negative signaling to markets. But of course, the cost-benefit analysis of the proposal would be different if the credit conditions would involve a much longer maturity. That would change the offer. I consider really as less relevant the argument that one also hears that there is a legacy of harsh conditionality of the ESM. This credit line almost has no conditionality, and certainly the ESM should not be demonized. So I hope that the summit will improve this credit line, at least by increasing the maturity of the ESM loan to the medium or long term.
And Mr. Costancio, just staying with the BTP market, because there's a lot of focus in it this week, there is a question out there about whether or not the ECB could end up accepting junk-rated debt as collateral if we do see those credit rating downgrades potentially happening to Italy too. Is that something, given the fact that you know the ECB so well, that you see Madame Lagarde actually doing?
Well, I cannot really predict, but I don't think it is a relevant issue to go or not to go into lower rating bonds. And by the way, that would be for private sector bonds. This is a different discussion about buying sovereign bonds, and the problem of junk bonds does not really arise. It has already been decided, for instance, to buy Greek bonds. So that is not really an issue. The ECB will continue with its very sizable program of purchases.
And now let's look into the future, because the ESM is just one part of this deal. There's another focus and another very strong debate on what the recovery fund should look like. There's many papers floating around. The latest proposal looks into perhaps perpetual bonds, a 1 to 1.5 trillion euro fund. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think there's space for a perpetual bond out there in the market?
Well, the perpetual bonds is just an element of a good proposal put forward by Spain. I would not do perpetuals. It's not necessary for the proposal. It is enough just for the Commission to issue long-term bonds, which would be quite appropriate for the purpose. The proposal goes in the same direction I suggested weeks ago on Twitter, by creating a special fund to do transfers and not loans. And that's the crucial element of the proposal. So it would be outside the EU budget, but it will use the Commission's capability to issue AAA bonds covered by a decision of all member states to increase their budget contribution. The advantage of having transfers instead of loans is that the country's debt ratios would not be impacted upfront, as the new contributions just have the same nature as the existing contributions. So it is a solution using the existing treaty, and the European institutions, and formally is different from Eurobonds. It's also very important that it is a solution that treats equally all countries, and therefore shows effective solidarity, which politically it is crucial in these moments for European cohesion.
And in terms of what you just said, I think it's worth stressing that you're suggesting this should be done through transfers, not loans, because that would increase the fragmentation in the euro area and in countries that may be seen as strong and countries that may be seen as weak for the market. In your view, how much do you worry, though, that the market may say or question the debt sustainability of countries perhaps like Italy if there isn't a sufficient plan?
Well,
and fund my car, from a Mini to a Jaguar.
Feel good
car buying from findandfundmycar.com is the place where you can find quality used cars from trusted dealers rated by you, and where you can fund your car with finance to fit your budget. It's feel-good car buying, all in one place.
Carry on, choose findandfundmycar.com.
The garden tools that mean you can grow your own. The fire pit that turns tea time into an alfresco dining experience. The paddling pool that turns your back garden into a water park. With a choice of ways to pay, you can make the most of family time. You can say yes when it matters most at very.co.uk. Goods and services provided by Shop Direct Home Shopping Limited. Credit provided. Subject to status by Shop Direct Finance Company Limited. 18+.
Okay, people, I've got the daily checklist. Who today has ignored a call on purpose? Tick. Talked yourself out of a workout? Tick. Spent far too long scrolling on your phone? Tick. Here's another for your list. BritBox. Streaming the BBC, ITV, Channel 5 and now Channel 4. All in one place and ad-free. So add BritBox to your list and get a 30-day free trial of the biggest box of British box sets. Search BritBox free trial. Tick. Biggest compared to other SVOD providers. Auto-renews at $5.99 a month unless cancelled. T's and C's apply.
This is a message from the government. Coronavirus is a national emergency. Life-threatening for people of all ages everywhere in the UK. To help save lives, stay home. Only go outside for food, health reasons, daily exercise or to work. But only if you cannot work from home. Stay home. Anyone can get it and anyone can spread it. Coronavirus. Stay home. Protect the NHS. Save lives.
Tonight, it's a Lotto triple rollover. Don't miss out. Play your numbers online or on the app today. Lotto from the National Lottery. Your numbers make amazing happen. Rules and procedures apply. Players must be 16 or over.
Stay in touch with your loved ones with great phones at great prices from Tesco Mobile. Like the incredible iPhone 7 with advanced HD front camera. Perfect for video calling. For just $13.99 a month. That's our lowest ever price. Search Tesco Mobile. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
Ends 14th of June. Was £15.99. 36-month credit and rolling monthly usage agreements with Tesco Mobile required. Subject to status. Phase policy applies. See tescomobile.com/terms.
Well, not necessarily, but it may be because the virus may come back later again, as it has happened in 1918 with the Spanish flu. So we don't know, but nevertheless, the ECB Governing Council and the President of the ECB have said very clearly only last week that they are willing to increase the size of the program of purchase, even to change its composition by as much as necessary. So the ECB will be in a position to respond if there would be a second round of pressure on sovereign bonds.
Well, we're going to leave it at that. Victor Castasio, former Vice President of the European Central Bank, thank you so much for being with us, and we hope to see you soon.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Maria.
And now that we've talked about the economics, we've talked about the macro, let's focus into the politics, because a country that is really at the focus point here is Italy. And we're now joined by Enrico Letta, who is the former Italian premier, now on the line with us. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
So my first question, and again, kind of looking into the politics, but also the market action that we're seeing, those Italian yields are climbing again. There's a lot of nervousness this week around what is going to happen to Italy, what is going to happen in the summit, and whether or not we get a credit rating downgrade. Do you think, given the fact that we have all of this happening at the same time, ultimately this pushes a country closer into the ESM?
The ESM is part of the answer, but it's not the most important one. I think and I guess that the most important part of the package is the recovery fund, because the recovery fund has a dimension and also a target that is the most important one, that is the real economy, how to tackle the recession in terms of relaunch of real economy. ESM is important, but ESM will be only on sanitary furnitures or health expenditures and for an amount of money that is not so big. So I know that the domestic debate is very nervous in Italy on that topic because of the past, because of the discussions about the use of the ESM in the Greek case. But I would like just to say that the ESM, in my view, it is not the pillar, the heart of the discussion. The most important part tomorrow will be the recovery fund. Until now, it is an empty box. It's a good idea, but it is an empty box. It depends on how this empty box will be fulfilled, and that is the brief tomorrow afternoon.
And Giuseppe Conte was in the Senate yesterday, and it seemed to me, and I'm not sure if you agree, and I would like to get your thoughts on it, that he did soften the tone yesterday. It wasn't as binary as he's been. I'm not sure if you agree, and I would like to get your thoughts on it, that he did soften the tone yesterday. It wasn't as binary as he's been lately in terms of no to the ESM, yes to Corona bonds, and that is it. Do you think that the tone from the government is changing in the right direction, and that is ultimately a good thing?
Yes, I think you're right. It is part of a negotiating process. It is clear that until now, the position of countries like the Netherlands, for instance, with their obstacle to any initiative to a common solution on the crisis, oblige also the other countries to be as tough as they were. But I think what is very important is that there's a strategic option that Italy took, and the strategic option is to be together with France, Spain, Belgium, Portugal, Ireland, countries that are the large part today of the euro area, pushing for a common solution and common a solution to the euro crisis. And I think Italy has to be in this alliance. Conte yesterday was, having, I think, a good position and thinking that it is important to have a comprehensive agreement tomorrow in the European Council, and to have this comprehensive agreement because we need liquidity today to tackle the crisis. And liquidity has to come from many sources, not only from one source, from many sources, and we need all these sources.
And one of them, of course, as you mentioned, is the recovery fund. And we know the Spanish are saying this fund should be around 1.5 trillion euros. It should be funded through perpetual bonds. This is a huge amount. This is almost the size of the Italian economy. Is that, you think, the appropriate level, or actually we're going to need more than that?
I like the Spanish proposal. I think the Spanish government was very good in having this proposal, and I think it's also a very good and realistic proposal. It is not just a flag in this political negotiation. It is a realistic proposal. I think a compromise can be reached on this proposal. So I am more optimistic today than I was 2 days ago, because I see some steps. I heard also some positions from Germany interested to push this idea of a bond by the European Commission, with the guarantee of the European Commission, and also an increase of the MFF. That is the most important part of the deal. So to take opportunity of this crisis to say now we need to have an increase of the European budget, not to keep the European budget at this crazy 1% of European GDP. That is not enough for the ambitions of the European Union. So that means that the European Union can be stronger after this crisis and with more tools. That is a good lesson that we can take from previous crises, when at the end of the day we had 4 years, from 8 to 12, to get new tools. But these new tools in the previous crisis were decisive, whatever it takes. ESM created and established all in 12 after 4 years. This time, I have to say, the European Union reacted rapidly, and after 4 weeks, the European Union did more than 4 years from 8 to 12. I think it's a good track for the moment.
And let's say on Friday we do have a deal, there's something on paper. The other side to this equation is Conte being able to sell this to Italians. Italian politics right now look very, very, very messy. There's a lot of nerves because of that. Do you worry perhaps that we're not going to see a majority for anything? There's no coalition of the positive. People cannot come around an idea, and ultimately we head into a government crisis?
I think the situation is a dramatic one, and I'm sure that the political debate in Italy and political parties will take their own responsibilities. I know there's also some part of the opposition today thinking to help and support a European agreement. That is what Forza Italia is thinking to do. So I am quite confident that at the end of the day, responsibility will win.
So would you say that at this point, given everything that's happening, the worst thing that could happen is to have another government crisis? An election is not going to solve this.
I don't think that we can. It would be crazy to have in this very moment. Why, when you have still 400 deaths every day, to have a political crisis. Now we need resilience of the system. I think we have to start from the great responsibility that the Italian people showed. The Italians are always blamed because we are not people good in applying rules, in obeying rules, and I think in this opportunity, this very dramatic occasion, we showed that there's a possibility for Italians to show responsibility, to be reliant, to be accountable, and the way in which the Italian people reacted to the crisis, I think it's a great asset. It's a treasure, and I hope leaders and politicians will take this as an asset for the future too.
And just very quickly, Mr. Letta, very, very quickly, do you worry that an exit from the European Union is now more likely than it was 2 months ago?
No, I don't think so. I know that some populist leaders are playing the scapegoat game as usual against Europe, but there's no alternative. What is the alternative? To be alone? The alternative is to be with the Russians or with who? So I think it is a part of the political game.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Enrico Letta, former Prime Minister of Italy. Before that, also ECB Vice President Victor Costanzo joining us on the phone too. And this is it for the Brussels edition. I'm Maria Tadeo. Caroline?
Thank you so much. A great listen, and some really good questions about the future of Europe dealing with the coronavirus lockdown. So thank you so much for that special edition live from Brussels. Hope to get many more of those top European voices for our listeners here on Bloomberg Radio. But coming up next, we've got another great interview with Patrick Armstrong, the CIO at Plurimi Wealth. He will be joining us next. He's betting on healthcare and tech stocks these days. I've heard that from many investors, so I'm going to dig a bit deeper with Patrick Armstrong coming up next, and Matt Miller on the programme. You're listening to Bloomberg Daybreak Europe, live from London, Berlin and Brussels today. This is Bloomberg.
When you went car shopping, you meant business. You aced vehicle history searches and test drives. You out-salesmaned the salesman. Now you've got your wheels. If you manage that, you can get your retirement plan on track. Visiting aceyourretirement.org can help. With 401k tips and smart saving strategies, you'll have the info you need to get more for your future. Go to aceyourretirement.org, because when it comes to speeding past financial challenges, you're an ace. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Inovalon is a leading provider of cloud-based platforms empowering data-driven healthcare. Leveraging deep connectivity, the data of billions of medical events, and advanced analytics, Inovalon empowers the achievement of improved clinical outcomes and financial performance for thousands of health insurance companies, hospitals, doctors, pharmacies, and pharmaceutical companies, and the millions of patients they serve every day. Inovalon. Data has a story to tell. We give it a voice. Learn more at Inovalon.com.
Imagine being denied an apartment because of your religion, or your race, or because you have children, or a disability.
It's so wrong.
Yes, but who has the power to stop this?
You do. Each of us has the power. The law is on your side. It's illegal for landlords to discriminate because of race, color, religion, sex, national origin, disability, or familial status. If you suspect that you have experienced housing discrimination, file a complaint with HUD immediately so we can investigate it. Fair housing is your right.
Use it.
To learn more, visit HUD.gov/fairhousing. That's HUD.gov/fairhousing. Or call 1-800-669-9777. 1-800-669-9777. A public service message from HUD in partnership with the National Fair Housing Alliance.
Why?
Oh, just there, Dave. Smashing. Great. Really? Night, Steve. Yeah, see ya. Built to take the big knocks. Samsung rugged devices. Easy to use, hard to break. Explore the Samsung rugged range.
Okay, people, I've got the daily checklist. Who today has eaten dinner for breakfast? Tick. Started a chore you'll never finish? Tick. Done a conference call in your pajamas? Tick. Here's another for your list. BritBox. Streaming the BBC, ITV, Channel 5, and now Channel 4. All in one place and ad-free. So add BritBox to your list and get a 30-day free trial of the biggest box of British box sets. Search BritBox free trial. Tick. Biggest compared to other SVOD providers. Auto-renews at $5.99 a month unless cancelled. T's and C's apply.
This is a message from the government. Coronavirus is a national emergency, life-threatening for people of all ages everywhere in the UK. To help save lives, stay home. Only go outside for food, health reasons, daily exercise, or to work, but only if you cannot work from home. Stay home. Anyone can get it, and anyone can spread it. Coronavirus. Stay home, protect the NHS, save lives.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks to national lottery players, communities across the country are about to benefit from up to £300 million of funding.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Money that will help support the most vulnerable in these exceptional times.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Food banks, local health organisations, charities combating loneliness, and thousands of other community causes will all get vital resources.
Thank you. Thank you.
And it's all thanks to you, playing the National Lottery. Your numbers make amazing happen.
They say singing can help you remember things, so here's some tips for parents out there during these tough times.
Number 1.
Make sure your kids wash their hands for 20 seconds after they've coughed or sneezed or been outside.
2.
Virtual play dates, social and physical distancing can help save lives.
3.
Tell them they're safe and show your love and pride. Yes, we'll get through this together. Find out more at coronavirus.gov. A message from the CDC and the Ad Council.
Wondering what to play next? Want to know what other TuneIn listeners are listening to right now? Head to the trending section under Browse to explore the most popular stations and podcasts on TuneIn today. Millions of listeners like you can't be wrong.
Want to know a great way to discover the latest and greatest sports audio on TuneIn? It's easy. Just make sure push notifications are enabled on your phone to receive recommendations of sports talk radio and podcasts, along with important breaking news updates.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
I'm Mel Kiper Jr., and to get you ready for the NFL Draft, you can listen to my podcast, First Draft, as Todd McShay, Chris Sproul, and I highlight all the top picks and give you the analysis you need leading up to the draft. Just search ESPN Radio today.
In case you didn't know, TuneIn lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio, except you can hear them from anywhere. If you want to find a station from somewhere else in the world, navigate to the By Location section under Browse. Keep exploring with TuneIn.
Markets, headlines and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on QuickTake by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Good morning from Bloomberg's World Headquarters in New York City. I'm Anne-Marie Horder with this Bloomberg Radio Business Flash. European equities in the green this morning. The FTSE 100 up nearly 1.5%. The DAX as well up more than 1% this morning. We are seeing a lot of bids out there higher for the technology and telecom sector. Over on this side of the Atlantic, the S&P 500 mini futures up 1.2%, comes after the S&P 500 closed down 3% yesterday. We are still seeing a lot of panic and a lot of selling in the oil market. Brent crude is trading at $17.31 this morning. That's down 10%. And WTI crude trading just under $11 this morning. Pierre Andron, renowned oil trader, said to me yesterday, it's dangerous right now to be trading in this oil market. In the FX market, euro dollar is flat, 108 against euro against the US dollar. We also have a little bit higher of the US dollar against the yen. We are seeing relatively a softer US dollar in the Bloomberg Dollar Index this morning. And a quick check on what's going on with yield. We saw some fluctuation below 0.6% right now. That yield 0.58% on the 10-year Treasury yield. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Now here's Leanne Garens with more what's going on around the world. Good morning, Leanne.
Good morning, Anne-Marie, and thank you. President Donald Trump says he will suspend illegal immigration to the U.S. for at least 2 months. That's to help Americans put out of work because of the coronavirus crisis. The president said it would be wrong and unjust for Americans to be replaced in the workforce by new immigrant labor. The pause will be in effect for 60 days and only apply to those seeking permanent residency. Now, the UK government is set for its first major political test of the pandemic. A virtual parliament will see ministers questioned via video conference, with most MPs taking part remotely. With the Prime Minister still out of action, Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab will be in the chamber itself, joined by Labour Party leader Keir Starmer. And Munich's famed Oktoberfest Folk and Beer Festival has been cancelled for the first time since World War II. It's the latest major event to fall victim of the coronavirus outbreak and a blow to the Bavarian capital's economy. Germany has banned large public gatherings until at least the end of August. Global news 24 hours a day on air and on QuickTake by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Leanne Garens. This is Bloomberg. Matt.
Leanne, thank you very much for that.
I wasn't sure who to go to, so just thought I'd say it quietly in the hope of getting it right.
But yes, you always get it right. Leanne Garens there with your global news headlines. Let's get over now to Nathan Hager. He's in the U.S. preparing for Bloomberg Daybreak. Nathan, what have you got ahead for us on this? Is it Wednesday? It's Wednesday, right?
Yeah, you have to check every day, don't you, just to make sure. But yes, it is indeed Wednesday. Good morning, Matt. The cratering demand picture for oil continues to be a major focus for investors. Just looking at the screen this morning, now that the May contract is behind us and those negative numbers, still at historic lows in the U.S. and international markets on the front end of crude futures. We're going to talk about what it all means for the broader market with Andrew Sheets of Morgan Stanley. He's going to be with us this morning. Also looking at earnings, specifically Netflix, a literal captive audience. Sure seems to have paid off for the streaming service with eye-popping numbers. Now the question is, can Netflix maintain that momentum once the pandemic is over? And since it is Wednesday, we do have our weekly check-in with Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health immunologist Andy Peckosh. We're going to talk about coronavirus testing, where we are on that crucial front as more states here in the U.S. look at ways to reopen their economies. All that's coming up with me and Karen Moscow. Hope you join us for it on Bloomberg Daybreak on this Wednesday.
Indeed, looking forward to it. Nathan, thanks very much. Nathan Hager there. Coming up with Karen Moscow, if you're listening on Sirius XM, channel 119. If you're tuned in on London DAB digital radio, you will hear Bloomberg surveillance.
Okay, let's talk about stocks this morning. So we're gaining a foothold certainly in Europe after Wall Street's worst session in 3 weeks yesterday, a big slump also in European equities. Investors are weighing this continued volatility in the oil market and some fresh earnings like Netflix that Nathan just mentioned, also the pharma giants Roche and Axo Nobel in Europe this morning. So let's bring in our guest, Patrick Armstrong, CIO at Plurimi Wealth. Patrick, you're pretty bullish on tech and healthcare. That's a call that I've heard from a number of people, but still, this earnings season, the numbers are very difficult to gauge given how far and how fast we have moved in the space of a few months. So thoughts about earnings right now, we're still too positive, basically. Is that it?
Analysts are still too positive, or there's a lot of stale prices that analysts just haven't updated their estimates until they hear the quarterly call from companies. I think it's probably a bit of both of those. But it's hard to see how S&P 500 is only going to see earnings fall by about less than 10% this year. So estimates have been cut by about 18% from where they were at the start of the year, but coming into the year, analysts were forecasting almost 12% growth. So they're getting to something close to reality, but I think by the time we get through this year, I think estimates will probably need to fall 50% before it's done. So I think there's still a lot of cutting to happen. And for me, that's why I like the healthcare and the tech companies. Those are the sectors that obviously won't necessitate a lot of cut. And I think I'll get more bullish on indebted companies, cyclical and value companies, once those cuts are reflected in the consensus. And that negative sort of Damocles isn't hanging over those kind of companies.
So, but you think there will be, throughout the year, places to get into those kind of companies? I mean, 2021 earnings is what it's all about for them, right? I mean, 2020 is pretty much a write-off.
Yeah, I think that's probably a fair take, that most investors, you can't be shocked by something negative right now. So you're getting a bit of a free pass, and companies will throw the kitchen sink and write off everything they can right now, knowing that investors will not be surprised by that. So that might set the scene for a recovery in 2021. And I think this probably will be the beginning of a regime change in terms of growth and value at some point, that the value companies that are now looking like they're trading at 6 and 7 times earnings, those aren't realistic earnings, but we'll get to the point where there is a realistic earnings that you can trade off of, and those will be 2021 numbers. The guidance that we're going to get from companies in the coming weeks, though, is that they have no idea how bad things are going to get, because no one's got a working crystal ball, and companies aren't any better positioned than anyone else because this is unknown, it's unprecedented. It's hard to see where the demand quickly comes back. And a month ago, I was more bullish on a V-shaped recovery, and now it's pretty clear to me we're not going to get that V-shaped recovery. So a month ago I was talking about this fiscal stimulus, monetary stimulus, low oil prices going to push demand up. But things like the Munich beer festival, Oktoberfest, being cancelled, it just shows this isn't going to be a short-term hit, that millions of people into Munich aren't going to come. There's billions of revenue lost and things like that. So I'm not as bullish on the sharp recovery as I was. I still think we get that sharpish recovery, but it's probably a little further out than I was hoping for a month ago.
How worried are you then about kind of second, third waves of the coronavirus? Because that's what I've heard some of our other guests sort of look to and point to, that the big unknown is the kind of health issue going forwards. Is that your key concern too then?
That's definitely a wild card. No one knows. So a month ago we were talking about potential for herd immunity. Now there's a question, do you even get immunity? Can you get it a second time? And once we get through the summer period, is there influenza season happening at the same time as an uptick in COVID-19 again? Definitely unknowns, definitely potential headwinds that are completely realistic. And that's one of the reasons I'm not as bullish as I was. I think stocks were cheaper a month ago. They've gone up. And I think the outlook for me has changed and gotten a little worse over the last month, my expectations.
Let me ask you about something weird. I'll throw you a curveball here. Well, it was weird, but now people are talking about it so much that it may be normal again. What do you think about perpetual bonds? It's something that previously, I'd only read about. Apparently, Yale has one from a Dutch water company that's been around for 372 years, and they collect about 100 euros of interest a decade. But Spain is talking about this as a possibility to fund recovery money. What do you think about that? Do you think investors would have an appetite for something like perpetual debt?
I don't know who will have it. It's a good way to get your duration, I guess. And we are going to get into things that we've never seen before. So MMT was talked about as a radical proposition. It's becoming more mainstream. We've got helicopter money potentially coming, $1,200 to every U.S. citizen. It's happened already. it's not a stretch to see how the Fed gets from just buying bonds to just basically printing money that doesn't have to be paid back with debt. The United Kingdom is doing that already, so the Bank of England is just supplying the government money rather than the government issuing gilts. Eventually they'll issue gilts to cover that, but there's going to be mechanisms, maybe even we'll get into something which is completely bizarre, a zero coupon perpetual, which is essentially just printing money where you never have to pay any coupon and never pay it back, and it's just a bookkeeping entry for a state or a nation to finance its books.
Yeah, interesting, because of course the Bank of England and the government have kind of denied that it's helicopter money in the UK. That's a whole nother debate, though. We shan't go there. Thank you so much, Patrick Armstrong, for joining us, CIO at Plurimi Wealth. Really great to get your view. Yeah, so much more pessimistic than he was a month ago.
Christine Lagarde today said the governing council has never even discussed helicopter money.
Yes, insisting that they
You
have
would
not.
think that a group of intellectuals, who read the news...
Yeah.
Would, at least when they're sitting by the fireplace having a glass of brandy, would at least bring it up, with open minds. But I guess they haven't even talked about it. It hasn't even mentioned. Anyway, surveillance is up next. If you're in the U.S., you'll hear Daybreak. This is Bloomberg.
Okay, people, I've got the daily checklist. Who today has ignored a call on purpose? Tick. Talked yourself out of a workout? Tick. Spent far too long scrolling on your phone? Tick. Here's another for your list. BritBox. Streaming the BBC, ITV, Channel 5 and now Channel 4. All in one place and ad-free. So add BritBox to your list and get a 30-day free trial of the biggest box of British box sets. Search BritBox free trial. Tick. Biggest compared to other SVOD providers. Auto renews at $5.99 a month unless cancelled. T's and C's apply.
From cafes by the sea to restaurants in the city, at Starling Bank, we'll help you keep your business flying high. With flexible overdrafts of up to £150,000, we'll get your cash flow running smoothly. Your business is ready for takeoff. Starling Bank, helping business fly.
This is a message from the government. Coronavirus is a national emergency, life-threatening for people of all ages everywhere in the UK. To help save lives, stay home. Only go outside for food, health reasons, daily exercise or to work, but only if you cannot work from home. Stay home. Anyone can get it and anyone can spread it. Coronavirus. Stay home, protect the NHS, save lives.
Middle of the world, 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio.
Live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studios, this is Bloomberg Daybreak for Wednesday, April 22nd, 2020. Coming up this hour.
The oil rout deepens as Brent crude hits a 2-decade low.
The Senate approves nearly $500 billion for small business.
The coronavirus outbreak eases in parts of the country and picks up in others.
And with Americans at home, Netflix reports the strongest growth in its history.
New York Governor Cuomo plans a regional reopening and eases an elective surgery ban, plus a Senate panel backs spy agencies on Russia's preference for Donald Trump. I'm Michael Barr. More ahead.
I'm John Stashower in sports. Rob Gronkowski coming out of retirement to be reunited with Tom Brady at Tampa Bay. Alex Rodriguez wants to own the Mets.
That's all straight ahead on Bloomberg Daybreak. On Bloomberg 1130 New York, Bloomberg 99.1 Washington, D.C., Bloomberg 106.1 Boston, Bloomberg 960 San Francisco, Sirius XM 119, and around the world on BloombergRadio.com and via the Bloomberg Business app.
Good morning, I'm Karen Moscow.
And I'm Nathan Hager. Bloomberg Daybreak brought to you by BNY Mellon's Pershing. Learn why the world's most sophisticated advisory firms and broker-dealers rely on Pershing to help them improve profitability, create efficiency, attract talent, and manage risk at Pershing.com.
U.S. futures rebounding from yesterday's losses. 5:01 on Wall Street, and we check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg. S&P futures up 42 points. Dow futures up 322. NASDAQ futures up 120. The DAX in Germany's up 1.6%. CAC in Paris up 1.2%. And the FTSE 100 is up 1.7%. Nikkei 225 in Japan fell 0.7%, while the Hang Seng in Hong Kong was up 0.4%. 10-year Treasury down 4/32, yield 0.58%. Yield on the 2-year, 0.20%. Nathan.
Well, Karen Oil continues its historic slide. Brent crude is joining the sell-off as the global benchmark hits a 2-decade low. The White House is exploring ways to stem the rout. We spoke with Energy Secretary Dan Brulette.
We've now contracted to take approximately 23 million barrels of oil, put that into the strategic reserve. You also saw the president's tweet. I'm going to work closely with Secretary of Treasury Mnuchin to see what we might do to look at the laws and the facilities that Congress has directed us to create, the lending facilities, to ensure that those are available to the energy industry as well.
An epic collapse in demand has oil companies reeling and the government looking to stem the fallout. Most recently, President Trump brokered a deal with producers to pull nearly 10 million barrels of crude from the market.
But that won't be enough. Demand has collapsed by at least twice that amount, and storage tanks will keep filling as travel restrictions keep planes on the ground and drivers off the road. Without production caps or shut-ins, commodities hedge fund manager Pierre Endurance said oil could fall below zero again.
Things are not going to get better very soon because we still are in oversupply. Inventories around the world will keep on going up, so it will force shut-ins. Basically, we need to have those shut-ins to rebalance the market. And then things will get better. But we cannot ask OPEC Plus to do all the work, and cuts happening in a month or two from now are not enough. We need the shut-ins to happen now. Oil cannot be moved.
Checking prices now. West Texas Intermediate crude for June delivery is at $11.06 a barrel. WTI for July delivery is at $19.22, and Brent is trading near the lowest level in 2 decades at $17.50 a barrel.
Oh, turning to earnings now. Netflix is out with the strongest results in its history. The company added more than 15 million subscribers in the first quarter as the coronavirus outbreak kept billions of people at home in front of the TV. At the same time, Netflix warns the boom won't last. Dan Morgan covers the company for Synovus Trust.
They're trying to be smart about this and say, look, we're not going to keep up at a pace of 15 million people per quarter. Let's kind of put some water on the fire here and get back into some sort of realistic number in terms of new subscribers.
Netflix expects the surge in subscribers to come at the expense of future growth. Shares are down 1% in the pre-market.
While Netflix thrives, small business is reeling, but more help is on the way. The Senate passed nearly $500 billion in new relief funds for small companies, including $320 billion to help keep workers on the payrolls. Here's Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin.
We've already impacted about 30 million workers. There'll be a lot more. So we look forward to this having a big impact on the economy.
The House could take up the bill as soon as tomorrow, and we'll get more on the measure today from Nancy Pelosi. Tune in for an interview with the House Speaker at noon Eastern on Bloomberg Radio and Television.
COVID-19 cases across the country now number more than 800,000. 44,000 people have succumbed to the disease. The pandemic is easing in some parts of the country and picking up in others. We have Bloomberg team coverage on the outbreak now, beginning in New York with Bloomberg's John Tucker. Good morning, John.
And good morning, Nathan. The latest numbers have daily infections across the country rising 5.7%. That is the biggest increase in 12 days. New Jersey reported a record increase in fatalities, 380 lives lost in a single day. Meantime, the spread is slowing in New York with the fewest new cases since March. That is the state preparing plans to reopen in phases. I'm John Tucker in New York. Now here's Courtney Donahoe in our Bloomberg 106.1 Boston newsroom.
Massachusetts reports more than 1,500 new infections and 150 deaths. Projections show the state at the peak of the outbreak as fatalities approach 2,000.
The data shows we're still very much in the grips of a pandemic here in Massachusetts. Now, I know that's hard to hear and it's hard for me to say.
Governor Charlie Baker says we're in the thick of the surge. He's ordered schools closed for the remainder of the academic year. I'm Courtney Donahoe. Now here's Martin DeCaro from our Bloomberg 99.1 newsroom in Washington.
Deaths in the D.C. region have passed 1,000. Confirmed cases in Maryland, Virginia, and the district approach 27,000. While the outbreak is flattening in other metro areas, White House health officials don't see a decline in D.C. yet. Still, local leaders are holding out hope to reopen the economy when limits on non-essential businesses expire in May and June. I'm Martin DeCaro in Washington. Now on the outbreak in California, here's Ed Baxter in the Bloomberg 960 San Francisco newsroom.
The state is reporting an increase of positive testing, up over 7%. Hospitalizations and ICU up for the first time in several days, and deaths of particular concern, a 5% increase. Governor Gavin Newsom.
We are still seeing spikes. We're still seeing
people tragically lose their lives. We're still seeing concentration of positives.
And he says there needs to be a focus on elder care and that the state is not ready to reopen anytime soon. In San Francisco, I'm Ed Baxter, Bloomberg Daybreak.
All right, Ed, thank you. S&P futures again moving higher, up 38 points. Dow futures up 294, NASDAQ futures up 115. The euro is at 1.0866 against the dollar, British pound 1.2343, and the yen 107.58. And straight ahead, we have the latest world and national news, and this is Bloomberg.
All right, Karen, thank you. It is 5:07 on Wall Street. Now let's bring in Michael Barr for more on what's going on around the world. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, Nathan. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo took a step toward reopening the state, allowing elective surgeries to take place starting next week in regions without large coronavirus outbreaks. Cuomo, speaking in Buffalo, says while hospitals downstate and in New York City in particular remain over capacity, some upstates are laying off staff due to lack of need. Governor Cuomo also told President Trump that the Navy hospital ship, the Comfort, which was sent to New York late last month, isn't needed anymore. Following his meeting with the president, Governor Cuomo said the ship did help save lives.
172 people were in the Comfort, and I believe the Comfort not only brought comfort, but saved lives.
President Trump also said he will work with Cuomo to double coronavirus testing in the next few weeks. New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy says stay-at-home orders will remain in effect in his state.
Listen, I hate to be Dr. No here, but we've made an enormous amount of progress, but we've got to continue to stay home and stay away from each other. That's the only hope. We haven't plateaued yet. We still have to get to the top and then come down the other side. And the only way we do that is if we keep the social distancing we're doing.
Fatalities now total more than 4,700 in the state. In Connecticut, there are more than 1,400 virus deaths. The bipartisan Senate Intelligence Committee concluded that the nation's spy agencies correctly assessed that Russia interfered with the 2016 election in order to hurt Hillary Clinton and help Donald Trump. The committee said the assessment was backed up by the intelligence that the committee reviewed. President Trump says he would halt the issuance of green cards for 2 months, stopping short of a sweeping immigration ban.
This pause on new immigration will also help to conserve vital medical resources for American citizens. A short break from new immigration, depending on the time we're talking about, will protect the solvency of our healthcare system and provide relief to jobless Americans.
Trump says he will likely sign the executive order today. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg, Nathan.
Okay, Michael, thank you. It is 5:09 on Wall Street. Now time for the Bloomberg Sports Update. Good morning, John Stashower.
All right, good morning, Nathan. Everyone knew there'd be trades leading up to the NFL draft, but no one really expecting a blockbuster involving a future Hall of Famer who had been retired. But after Tom Brady signed with Tampa Bay, Rob Gronkowski became interested in unretiring. The Patriots still owned his rights, but the deal was made. Gronk to the Bucs with the 7th-round pick. The Patriots get a 4th-rounder. Gronk told Fox Sports he always said when he had that feeling again, he'd be ready, and he's ready. 5-time Pro Bowler in New England who has caught over 500 passes, has scored more than 70 touchdowns in almost every one of them. Passes thrown by Brady. The Bucs own the worst one-loss percentage in all of sports. Yesterday, odds on them winning the Super Bowl dipped from 17-1 to 14-1. NFL MVP Lamar Jackson, the Ravens, will be on the Madden video game cover, which at times has been seen as a curse, but last year it was Patrick Mahomes, and he won the Super Bowl. Alex Rodriguez and Jennifer Lopez have indeed retained J.P. Morgan to represent them in raising capital to try and buy the Mets. The two, who are not yet married, are said to have a net worth of roughly $700 million. The Mets were recently valued at $2.6 billion, so they would need plenty of partners, and this might not be the best time to find them. But if it really happened, presumably A-Rod would move into a role like Derek Jeter has in Miami running the franchise. 18 MLB teams have said they will not lay off any staff. The Mets and Yankees are not among them. Commissioner Rob Manfred has given teams the okay to do so starting in May. John Stashower, Bloomberg Sports. Nathan?
All right, John, thank you. And with growing speculation that sports could be played without fans when they resume after the coronavirus pandemic, one prominent golfer is objecting. Rory McIlroy says a Ryder Cup without fans would be not having a Ryder Cup. He says he'd rather delay the golf tournament until next year than hold out the possibility of playing in September without spectators. Futures moving higher this morning after yesterday's losses. S&P futures are up 43 points now. Dow futures up 330. NASDAQ futures a gain of 132 points. You're listening to Bloomberg Daybreak.
Asset managers who seize change to launch new strategies, add distribution channels, or exploit new technology to re-engineer the investor experience are often rewarded. However, in an industry paralyzed with complexity, few act with agility or decisively. Few run their business strategically. Yet, the most competitive managers in the market know, with the right partner and a flexible operating platform, you can. Go boldly toward change with SEI Investment Manager Services.
Determination and operational strength are both essential factors for growth in asset management. I'm Steve Meyer, President and Head of SEI's Investment Manager Services Division. We know that disruptive forces create opportunities around the world. If you see potential in change, our industry specialists will maximize SEI's integrated platform of data and risk management, global investment operations, compliance support, and investor services to position your asset management business for success. Come grow with us.
With SEI Investment Manager Services, you lead the charge in a competitive marketplace. Learn more at SEIC.com/seize change.
Business is constantly evolving. Is your financial printer evolving to keep ahead of the curve? At Command Financial, we are redefining financial printing by providing industry-leading expertise, leveraging technology, and honing processes and best practices. Every day, Command helps SEC registrants, as well as members of their working groups, including securities attorneys and investment bankers, prepare, file, and disseminate regulatory and disclosure documents, such as registration statements, M&A documents, and mutual fund prospectuses and reports. Command provides a full range of services to help you effectively complete your deal, meet your disclosure requirements, and achieve your shareholder communications objectives. Visit our website at commandfinancial.com and learn how we're evolving, not only with the times, but also with your business requirements. Command Financial, redefining financial printing.
Why is delivery? Did you know that players of People's Postcode Lottery have raised over £500 million for charities and good causes? They've also won £47 million in prizes so far this year, and it could be your postcode next. Visit postcodelottery.co.uk/radio before midnight on the 23rd of April to play in the May draws. PPL managed lotteries on behalf of good causes. 16 plus, conditions apply, play responsibly.
The loungewear essentials that ease you into your comfort zone. The Fitbit that helps you step up your fitness goals. The yoga mat that turns your lounge into a studio. With a choice of ways to pay, you can enjoy being the best possible you. You can say yes when it matters most at very.co.uk. Goods and services provided by Shop Direct Home Shopping Limited. Credit provided by Shop Direct Finance Company Limited.
Dating can be tricky, especially when you can't meet face-to-face. So it's time to get creative with the easy way to replace physical dates, Video Call from Bumble, the dating app where women make the first move. Here's Anna Williamson and Tom Reed-Wilson with some tips on connecting online.
It's a bit harder to flirt with limited body language, but nothing beats a smile and some eye contact to show them you're interested.
And have an activity plan for your date. This will help break the ice.
Download Bumble today.
Okay, people, I've got the daily checklist. Who today has ignored a call on purpose? Tick. Talked yourself out of a workout? Tick. Spent far too long scrolling on your phone? Tick. Here's another for your list. BritBox. Streaming the BBC, ITV, Channel 5, and now Channel 4. All in one place and ad-free. So add BritBox to your list and get a 30-day free trial of the biggest box of British box sets. Search BritBox free trial. Tick. Biggest compared to other SVOD providers. Auto-renews at $5.99 a month unless cancelled. T's and C's apply.
Conversations from Bloomberg Television. Here's Heidi Stroud-Watts.
Let's discuss all of this and the prospects for markets. Orion Advisor Solutions Chief Investment Officer Rusty Vanneman is with us. Rusty, great to have you. Let's start off with oil first. Are we going to see a broader impact of just the turmoil that we're seeing? Because, of course, May, you can call that the May contract a little bit of a technical blip, right, to the extreme. But we're already seeing that amount of volatility carry through to the June contract now as well. So at what point do we see a much bigger impact across all risk assets?
I mean, the moves, the markets each and every day seem to be surprising with some extraordinary volatility. And obviously what happened in the oil markets, the energy markets yesterday and today is just incredible. Obviously, it's a combination. We've already had oversupply. We've had oversupply for a while. That's why there's been pressure on the energy complex. Demand has plummeted, as we know. Gas demand is off 50%. We know airline travel is off 95%. It is definitely a concern for other risk assets. I am hopeful, and some of the things that I was looking at myself today is I was really worried the corporate bond market would get hit a lot harder. It didn't. I thought energy prices themselves would get hit a lot harder relative to other parts of the market. Obviously, they were down, but on a relative terms, they held up. I think those were encouraging signs.
Hear more interviews like this one on Bloomberg Television, streaming live on Bloomberg.com and on the Bloomberg mobile app, or check your local cable listings. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow. Stocks are rising this morning along with U.S. stock index futures as investors monitor continued volatility in energy markets and earnings reports that have not been uniformly negative. Oil prices renewed their slide. Brent crude pairing a tumble that reached 17% earlier. We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg. Right now, NYMEX crude oil is down about almost 6%. It's at $10.89 a barrel right now. Brent is down 7.7% at $17.85. Futures this morning, S&P futures up 44 points. Dow futures up 336. NASDAQ futures up 134. The DAX in Germany's up 1.5%. CAC in Paris is up 1%. And the FTSE 100 up 1.6%. 10-year Treasury down 5/30 seconds, yield 0.58%. The yield on the 2-year 0.20%. COMEX gold is up 2.4%, up $40 at $17.28 an ounce. The euro 1.0867 against the dollar. British pound 1.2358. And the yen 107.65. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Now here's Michael Barr with more on what's going on around the world. Michael.
Thank you very much, Karen. There's mixed news concerning the fight against the coronavirus. Bloomberg's John Tucker from New York has more in this live report.
And Michael, U.S. cases rose 5.7% to over 800,000. That was the biggest daily increase since April 10th. In New York, the epicenter of the U.S. outbreak, fatalities were below 500 for a second day in a row. New York added almost 4,200 cases. That's actually the smallest number since March. New Jersey reported a record increase in fatalities, 380 lives lost in a single day. And Deborah Birx, top health official of the Trump administration's coronavirus task force, says almost all major U.S. metropolitan areas are seeing improvements in their outbreaks. John Tucker, Bloomberg Daybreak.
John, thank you, sir. The bipartisan Senate Intelligence Committee concluded that the nation's spy agencies correctly assessed that Russia interfered with the 2016 election in order to hurt Hillary Clinton and help Donald Trump. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg, Nathan.
All right, Michael, thank you. We're coming up to 5:20 on Wall Street, live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers studios. This is Bloomberg Daybreak. We're pleased to have Andrew Sheets with us this morning, Chief Cross-Asset Strategist at Morgan Stanley. With the oil market continuing to be in focus, Andrew, just looking at prices on the front end, still falling significantly for June futures of West Texas Intermediate and Brent crude, but a pickup for July contracts. Where do you see prices going as we look ahead to this pandemic?
Well, thanks, and good morning. I think the curve actually has this right, that the curve can be steeper, that it can be in more contango. That's the way we've tried to approach it from the Morgan Stanley research side, and I think that reflects this still very serious supply and demand imbalance at the front end, and some very technical risks around the filling up of storage, balanced with, as you allude to, I think a much kind of better price picture as you look into 2021. Our commodity analysts at Morgan Stanley think that the WTI price could be closer to 40 as an average price for 2021 as you see some demand pick back up, but also the low prices that we're seeing today is really going to discourage supply, and in that way is somewhat self-healing.
But in the meantime, I mean, how long do you think it's going to take for the actual physical oil market to recover from this demand shock, and what kind of effect could that have on price?
Well, I do think that over the next couple of months, kind of through the second quarter, we do think prices remain weak. I think that is where I think you have the most risk that the storage picture could get full, and obviously it's hard to be too precise about that. I think that's also where the demand shock is proving, I think, very able to overwhelm the ability to cut production, that the demand is falling simply far faster than producers can cut, and OPEC's cuts haven't actually really even started in earnest yet. So I still think the second quarter will be weak, but I think when you move past the second quarter, that's where we think prices can start to rise again. I think after that point, some of the worst of the oversupply and lack of storage issues could be behind us. And also I think at that point, given that we forecast the low in global economic activity to be the second quarter, almost kind of by definition, oil demand is improving again at the margin in the third quarter.
Do you see the short-term fall for demand in oil prices having a spillover effect into equity markets?
Well, I do think it's important to kind of separate kind of the technical from the fundamental here. It's certainly, I think, a bad psychological impact. I think anytime you have something happen that's never happened before, naturally grabs headlines, will naturally lead to losses, will naturally undermine confidence. But I don't think it's actually the dominant factor that should be driving equity markets here. I actually think the more important or interesting message from the oil market is that it's low prices today, but higher prices down the road. And I think that message from the oil curve is actually, I think, somewhat constructive, that suggests that the future is going to be better, that the worst of this is happening now. So no, I don't think equity markets should take the current price as a reason to sell aggressively or be very bearish. I do think it's a near-term driver of volatility, but actually I think those higher prices down the road are somewhat more optimistic from a longer-term point of view.
From what I'm hearing, are you holding out the possibility that we could then see a V-shaped recovery for this economy? Or when you're talking about prices coming back in 2021, does that allude to more of a U-shape for you?
Well, I think in terms of the shape of the recovery, I actually think that the distinction between U or V could matter actually a little bit less. I think under both of those types of scenarios that investors are debating, both imply that the worst of the economic activity is happening right now and is going to be behind us by the third quarter. And I think that's incredibly important. I think markets can put up with a lot of bad news as long as they know that it's not going to get worse, as long as they know that the worst is behind them. And I actually think kind of the key thing for investors to focus on is avoiding a W, avoiding something that would cause growth to re-weaken or cases to re-spike aggressively as we move throughout the year. I think as long as that we can be sure that the worst of the growth is happening right now, I actually think markets can be quite resilient to either a U or a V.
Thanks, Andrew. Always good having you on. Andrew Sheets is Chief Cross-Asset Strategist at Morgan Stanley. Just taking a look at the oil market right now. June contracts for West Texas Intermediate down 6.3% or 73 cents, $10.83 a barrel. July contracts for WTI are higher by 3.5% at $19.34. Futures for the equity markets pointing to a higher open this morning. You're listening to Bloomberg Daybreak.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. Stock futures point to gains at the open following a more than 3% decline on Wall Street yesterday. The U.S. House is set to vote tomorrow on a new $484 billion coronavirus relief package after the Senate approved the deal yesterday. Most of the funding will be aimed at helping small businesses secure loans through the Payroll Protection Program that initially ran dry last week. Other money in the new aid package goes to hospitals and toward coronavirus testing. Yesterday, the Dow tumbled about 630 points. Oil continues to slide this morning, and corporate earnings have been mixed. Netflix added almost 16 million new subscribers in the first quarter as stay-at-home orders led more people to seek out home entertainment and original shows such as Ozark and The Tiger King. But Netflix expects the surge to come at the expense of growth in the months ahead. Dow futures up more than 300 points. Gina Cervetti, Bloomberg Radio.
Message and data rates may apply. T&C and privacy terms can be found at babbel.com/terms. Please don't text and drive.
Have you wanted to speak a new language, but you thought it'd be too hard or take too much time? Then try Babbel for free by texting EXPLORE to 64,000. In just 15 minutes a day, you'll be on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. And right now, you can try Babbel for free. Babbel starts out teaching you words and phrases by matching them with pictures. You won't believe how easy the interactive program is. Soon the sentences get a little bigger, and before you know it, you're having simulated conversations voiced by native speakers. And because Babbel is crafted by language experts and uses the spaced repetition method, in just 10 to 15 minutes a day, you'll be speaking the language of your choice with real confidence. With Babbel, you can speak a language. Just text EXPLORE to 64,000 and start your first lesson in the language of your choice for free. Download the Babbel app or text EXPLORE to 64,000 and try it for free. Text EXPLORE to 64,000.
Did you know that players of People's Postcode Lottery have raised over £500 million for charities and good causes? They've also won £47 million in prizes so far this year, and it could be your postcode next. Visit postcodelottery.co.uk/radio before midnight on the 23rd of April to play in the May draws. PPL managed lotteries on behalf of good causes. 16 plus, conditions apply, play responsibly.
Okay, people, I've got the daily checklist. Who today has eaten dinner for breakfast? Tick. Started a chore you'll never finish? Tick. Done a conference call in your pajamas? Tick. Here's another for your list. BritBox. Streaming the BBC, ITV, Channel 5 and now Channel 4. All in one place and ad-free. So add BritBox to your list and get a 30-day free trial of the biggest box of British box sets. Search BritBox free trial. Tick. Biggest compared to other SVOD providers. Auto-renews at $5.99 a month unless cancelled. T's and C's apply.
This is a message from the government. Coronavirus is a national emergency. Life-threatening for people of all ages everywhere in the UK. To help save lives, stay home. Only go outside for food, health reasons, daily exercise or to work, but only if you cannot work from home. Stay home. Anyone can get it and anyone can spread it. Coronavirus. Stay home, protect the NHS, save lives.
There are two sides to every story. From the epic tales of love and loss comes the huge new steady rolling single. When the Judgment Comes, the Elise Rich remix. Download When the Judgment Comes, the Elise Rich remix, or stream wherever good music lives.
At Lloyds Bank, we're doing everything we can at this time to help you manage your money. One of the most convenient ways to do this is to use internet banking. It's both safe and secure. You can check your balance, view your transactions, and move money between your Lloyds Bank accounts. You can manage and cancel standing orders and direct debits, and you're able to pay people and bills. Internet banking is covered by our fraud guarantee. Lloyds Bank. Now more than ever, we're by your side. For T's and C's, visit our website.
This is an ad for QuickFit. And even if you're not using your car at the moment, it's worth a listen. Because although QuickFit are still open for essential maintenance, there's plenty you can do yourself to make sure your car's ready when you need it. Keep an eye on tyre pressures, check fuel and fluid levels, and clear out some of those old cups. They're only going to sit there going mouldy. For more tips and information, visit quickfit.com. QuickFit, still there when you need them.
Broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119 and around the globe. The Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Daybreak.
And it's 5:30 on Wall Street. Good morning. I'm Nathan Hager.
And I'm Karen Moscow. We are just about 4 hours away from the opening of U.S. trading. Let's get you up to date on the news you need to know at this hour. Oil continues its historic slide. Brent crude is joining the sell-off as the global benchmark hits a 2-decade low. The White House is exploring ways to expand storage to stem the fallout. We spoke with Energy Secretary Dan Brulette.
The demand curve has moved so quickly in a downward fashion, the production is simply not able to keep up with it. It's not able to ramp down as quickly as the demand curve is ramped down. So as a result, we're dealing with this oversupply of oil.
Checking prices now. West Texas Intermediate crude for June delivery is at $11 a barrel. WTI for July delivery is at $19.63. And Brent crude trading near the lowest level in 2 decades. It's at $18.37 a barrel.
Now, on the earnings front, Netflix is out with its strongest results in history. The company added more than 15 million subscribers in the first quarter. At the same time, Netflix warns the boom won't last. Dan Morgan at Synovus Trust says there are concerns about holding on to new customers.
They're trying to be smart about this and say, look, we're not going to keep up at a pace of 15 million people per quarter. Let's kind of put some water on the fire here and get back into some sort of realistic number in terms of new subscribers.
Netflix expects the surge to come at the expense of future growth. Right now, shares are down almost 1% in the pre-market.
While Netflix thrives, small business is reeling, but more help is on the way. For the very latest, we're joined live by Bloomberg's John Tucker. Good morning, John.
And Karen, the Senate passed nearly $500 billion in new relief funds for small companies. That includes $320 billion for the Paycheck Protection Program, which helps small businesses keep workers on the payroll. The House could take up the bill as soon as tomorrow. We'll have more of the measure today from Nancy Pelosi. Tune in for an interview with the House Speaker at noon Eastern on Bloomberg Radio and Television. I'm John Tucker, Bloomberg Daybreak.
All right, John, thank you. S&P futures are higher, up 37 points this morning. Dow futures up 283, and NASDAQ futures up 117. The DAX in Germany is up 1.3%. The CAC in Paris up 0.7%, and the FTSE 100 is up about 1.4%. 10-year Treasury down 4/32. The yield 0.58%. The yield on the 2-year 0.20%, and the 30-year yield at 1.16%. COMEX gold higher, up 2.2%, up $37.30 at at $1,724.50 an ounce. Make that. And the euro is at 1.0862 against the dollar. And straight ahead, we have the latest world and national news. And this is Bloomberg.
All right, thank you, Karen. It's 5:33 on Wall Street. Now let's bring in Michael Barr to get a check on what else is going on around the world this morning. Michael?
Thank you very much, Nathan. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo took a small step toward reopening the state, allowing elective surgeries to take place in regions without large outbreaks. Cuomo, at a briefing in Buffalo, says while hospitals downstate and in New York City in particular remain over capacity, some upstate are laying off staff due to lack of need. Cuomo says the state needs a region-by-region approach to reopening. Governor Cuomo says he and President Trump talked about the Navy hospital ship The Comfort, which was sent to New York City late last month to help deal with an expected surge in COVID-19 cases.
The topic of the ship came up. I agreed, we all agreed that at this current rate, we don't need the Comfort anymore, and wherever they could use it, because you do have other places in the country that are now coming up to their curve. So whoever needs it, they should have it.
During the White House meeting, the president also agreed to help Cuomo to work to double coronavirus testing in the hard-hit state over the next few weeks. Parades in New York City have been canceled through the end of June, but when the time comes, Mayor Bill de Blasio said a parade will be thrown for the first responders and healthcare workers fighting COVID-19 every day.
They're fighting right now, and they have to keep fighting, and we have to keep supporting them and showing them our love and appreciation. But one day, we will be able to start back on the road, and we will honor them as they deserve, and that will be a beautiful and joyous day in this city.
In New York State, there are close to 17,700 deaths from the virus. In New Jersey, more than 4,700 deaths were reported, including Tuesday's record one-day jump of 377. In Connecticut, there are more than 1,400 deaths. The bipartisan Senate Intelligence Committee concluded that the nation's spy agencies correctly assessed that Russia interfered with the 2016 election in order to hurt Hillary Clinton and help Donald Trump. President Trump announced that he would halt the issuance of green cards, stopping short of a sweeping immigration ban.
This pause will be in effect for 60 days, after which the need for any extension or modification will be evaluated by myself and a group of people based on economic conditions at the time.
The president did hint at the possibility of additional restrictions. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg, Nathan.
Okay, Michael, thank you. It's almost 5:36 on Wall Street. Time for the Bloomberg Sports Update with John Stashower. Good morning, John.
All right, good morning, Nathan. What was yesterday morning a rumor became by yesterday afternoon a reality. Rob Gronkowski coming out of a year-long retirement to play again with Tom Brady. The two combined for over 500 catches, more than 70 touchdowns in New England. Now together again at Tampa Bay. Gronk's agent Drew Rosenhaus was on ESPN.
I think Rob was really interested in coming back about a month ago. Shortly after Tom Brady went to Tampa, Rob and I had a conversation that this is a situation that would be appealing to him. Obviously, this was a deal that New England had to feel good about. Tampa had to feel good about. This wasn't just about Rob.
He said Gronk's already passed his physical, and a big reason he retired at age 30 were those injuries. The Pats got a fourth-round draft pick from Tampa Bay, which is like found money. The first round of the virtual draft tomorrow night, there were glitches in Monday's dry run. The Detroit Lions have rented an RV. It'll be parked in the general manager's driveway with an IT staff to help fix technological problems. Could Alex Rodriguez and his fiancée Jennifer Lopez really become the owners of the Mets? Well, they are rich, but the Mets were recently valued at $2.6 billion, so they're not that rich. The couple have retained J.P. Morgan to represent them in raising capital. The Wilpons, owners for 40 years, had a deal to sell to hedge fund king Steve Cohen, and that deal fell through. Speaking of the Mets, April 22nd, this date in New York sports history, 1970, 50 years ago today, Shea Stadium, Mets beat the Padres. Tom Seaver, with a then Major League record 19 strikeouts, struck out the last 10 batters. John Stashower, Bloomberg Sports. Nathan?
All right, John, thank you. It is 5:37 on Wall Street, and the latest edition of Bloomberg Business Week is online with the cover on how Carnival kept cruises going even after it knew about the coronavirus problem. Chris Palmieri wrote the story for Bloomberg Business Week.
They had in early February a ship that ultimately was parked off the coast of Japan with 700 sick people on it. Yet they continued to sail. They continued to fight Washington's restrictions on them sailing. And even to this day have people still at sea.
You can read more about this and other stories in this week's edition of Bloomberg Business Week. It's online at businessweek.com. Terminal customers can receive a complimentary subscription at MAG Go. Listen to Business Week with Carol Masser and Jason Kelly on Bloomberg Radio and watch it on YouTube weekdays from 2 to 6 p.m. Wall Street time. Get global business, finance, and tech news on your TV, computer, or mobile device. Just visit youtube.com and search Bloomberg Global News. It's 5:38 on Wall Street, and that's time for the Tri-State Business Report. Here's Bloomberg's Ed Corey.
Sources tell Bloomberg SL Green Realty is in advanced talks to sell at least 2 loans attached to New York properties to boost its cash balance. They say the Real Estate Investment Trust is in talks to sell a mezzanine loan position backing Brooklyn's industry to CIM Group and a loan tied to a Manhattan office to Rockwood Capital. Well, New Jersey had more than $34 billion worth of bonds downgraded by Fitch, which assigned a negative outlook in the ratings. The state's slim reserves, large pension fund debts, and history of budget shortfalls gives it little flexibility to deal with the steep economic slowdown, according to Fitch. The shortage of coronavirus tests has led some essential businesses to seek out test kits on their own. The Day is reporting Connecticut-based Gilman Brothers, which makes foam board materials used for science, recently bought 10 tests from Texas-based company Microgen DX. That's your Bloomberg Tri-State Business Report. I'm Ed Corey.
Thank you, Ed. It's 5:39 on Wall Street. Bloomberg Radio is on the air from San Francisco to New York, London to Hong Kong. Let's check in with our global news team to get some of the top stories heard on our 300 affiliate radio stations around the world.
I'm Steve Potisk, and on KNX in Los Angeles, we're talking about changes to the residential solar energy market as it, too, deals with pandemic shutdowns.
I'm Courtney Donahoe on KTRH in Houston. Texas's energy regulator delayed any vote on cutting oil output until May 5th.
I'm Caroline Hettercott on Bloomberg DAB Digital Radio in London. We're reporting on the government's backing for scientists
searching for a coronavirus vaccine.
I'm Jeff Bellinger, and on Kogo in San Diego, I'm reporting on Netflix quarterly results that show explosive growth for the video streaming service.
I'm Ed Corey on WWJ in Detroit. I'm reporting General Motors is closing its Maven car-sharing service.
And those are some of the stories our 2,700 Bloomberg journalists and analysts are working on this morning around the world. Another story we're watching, bearish outlook on the stock market from Bank of America. The firm's strategists say U.S. equities are likely to see new lows if volatility patterns hold. Right now, futures are pointing to a higher open. This is Bloomberg.
Asset managers who seize change to launch new strategies, add distribution channels, or exploit new technology to re-engineer the investor experience are often rewarded. However, in an industry paralyzed with complexity, few act with agility or decisively. Few run their businesses strategically. Yet the most competitive managers in the market know with the right partner and a flexible operating system, you can. Go boldly toward change with SEI Investment Manager Services.
Determination and operational strength are both essential factors for growth in asset management. I'm Steve Meyer, President and Head of SEI's Investment Manager Services Division. We know that disruptive forces create opportunities around the world. If you see potential in change, our industry specialists will maximize SEI's integrated platform of data and risk management, global investment operations, compliance support, and investor services to position your asset management business for success. Come grow with us.
With SEI Investment Manager Services, you lead the charge in a competitive marketplace. Learn more at SEIC.com/seize change.
Business is constantly evolving. Is your financial printer evolving to keep ahead of the curve? At Command Financial, we are redefining financial printing by providing industry-leading expertise, leveraging technology, and honing processes and best practices. Every day, Command helps SEC registrants, as well as members of their working groups, including securities attorneys and investment bankers, prepare, file, and disseminate regulatory and disclosure documents, such as registration statements, M&A documents, and mutual fund prospectuses and reports. Command provides a full range of services to help you effectively complete your deal, meet your disclosure requirements, and achieve your shareholder communications objectives. Visit our website at commandfinancial.com and learn how we're evolving, not only with the times, but also with your business requirements. Command Financial, redefining financial printing.
This is your Bloomberg Real Estate.
Oh, just there, Dave. Smashing. Great. Really? Night, Steve.
Yeah, see ya. Built to take the big knocks. Samsung rugged devices. Easy to use, hard to break. Explore the Samsung rugged range.
Okay, people, I've got the daily checklist. Who today has ignored a call on purpose? Tick. Talked yourself out of a workout? Tick. Spent far too long scrolling on your phone? Tick. Here's another for your list. BritBox. Streaming the BBC, ITV, Channel 5, and now Channel 4. All in one place and ad-free. So add BritBox to your list and get a 30-day free trial of the biggest box of British box sets. Search BritBox free trial. Tick. Biggest compared to other SVOD providers. Auto renews at $5.99 a month unless cancelled. T's and C's apply.
This is a message from the government. Coronavirus is a national emergency, life-threatening for people of all ages everywhere in the UK. To help save lives, stay home. Only go outside for food, health reasons, daily exercise, or to work, but only if you cannot work from home. Stay home. Anyone can get it, and anyone can spread it. Coronavirus. Stay home, protect the NHS, save lives.
TuneIn makes it easy to be a part of the conversation. Just make sure push notifications are enabled to hear about breaking news and trending topics from around the sports world. You'll also get custom recommendations of podcasts and radio stations covering the sports and teams you care about. Be part of the college sports conversation on TuneIn. Hear the latest storylines around SEC football with the Paul Feinbaum Show.
I distinctly remember when you were hired, and I must say most of us thought you were out of your mind. Giving up, I wouldn't call it a cush job because you were traveling across the country.
Get your college hoops fix with college basketball talk on NBC Sports.
Headed by Shabazz Napier, that also included Amita Brima, who is in and around the NBA ranks right now, and DeAndre Daniels, who was the 37th pick in the 2014 NBA draft. So my question to you is...
Or listen to the daily news from around the wide world of college football with College Football Live.
I would go with Utah. I think Utah is the better team. And I know I'm talking to an Oklahoma guy, but listen, and it may be recency bias having watched Utah last week and doing that game, but I just think they're a more complete football.
Discover these and more college sports podcasts right here on TuneIn.
24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok on Twitter. Powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in over 120 countries. This is Bloomberg Radio. Now, a global news update.
Special report, coronavirus update, a relief bill for America's small businesses approved. More on the package from correspondent Karen Kafa.
A $480 billion package for small business, hospitals, and testing now moves from the Senate to the House, aiming for the president's desk by the end of the week and teeing up a debate over how much more relief may be needed. This as states work out safe ways to reopen.
More than $300 billion is earmarked to boost small business payroll. $75 billion more set aside for hospitals and a nationwide virus testing program. Protesters in several states are voicing their frustrations with ongoing stay-at-home orders.
Right now, in this moment, to do so in such an irresponsible way endangers the lives of others.
Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer says she understands people's frustration, but adds large protests are not safe right now. Dow futures are higher, up 1.5%. I'm John Trout.
Why all the top-tier experts? Because business is not a magic trick.
Give us a sense of the economic backdrop.
Bloomberg Markets.
Which financial records are these?
Weekday mornings at 10 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio. Bloomberg, the world is listening. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow. Stocks on the rise this morning with U.S. stock index futures as investors monitor continued volatility in energy markets and earnings reports that have not been uniformly negative. Oil prices renewing their slide. Brent crude pairing a tumble that reached 17% earlier. We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg. S&P futures, they're up 36 points. Dow futures up 286. NASDAQ futures up 115. The DAX in Germany's up 1.25%. 10-year Treasury down 5/30 seconds, yield 0.58%, and the yield on the 2-year 0.20%. NYMEX crude oil is down 3 1/3%, $11.18 a barrel, while Brent is at $18.71. That's down 3.2%. COMEX gold is up about 2%, up $32.40 at $1,720.20 an ounce. The euro 1.0865 against the dollar, the yen 107.67. And that's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Now here's Michael Barr with more on what's going on around the world. Michael.
Karen, the coronavirus outbreak is easing in some parts of the country and picking up in others. Bloomberg's John Tucker from New York has more in this live report.
Michael, U.S. cases rose 5.7% to over 800,000. That was the biggest daily increase since April 10th. In New York, the epicenter of the U.S. outbreak, fatalities were below 500 for a second day in a row. New York added almost 4,200 cases. That's the smallest number since March. New Jersey reported a record increase in fatalities, 380 lives lost in a single day. Deborah Birx, the top health official in the Trump administration's coronavirus task force, says almost all major U.S. metropolitan areas are seeing improvements in their outbreaks, with one notable exception, the Washington, D.C. region. John Tucker, Bloomberg Daybreak.
John, thank you, sir. The UK will begin human trials of a coronavirus vaccine starting tomorrow. The trials will be of a drug developed at Oxford University. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg. Nathan.
Okay, Michael, thank you. It is 5:49 on Wall Street, live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers studios. This is Bloomberg Daybreak. Good morning. I'm Nathan Hager. Let's take a look at earnings now. And if there's one standout in this uncertain season with the coronavirus pandemic continuing, it has to be Netflix. Wall Street might have expected the streaming service to do well with millions of Americans at home, but the numbers from the first quarter are nothing if not eye-popping. Paul Sweeney is back with us this morning, host of Bloomberg Surveillance and Bloomberg Markets here on Bloomberg Radio. 15.8 million subscribers. Paul.
Yeah.
I mean, that's nothing to sneeze at for sure.
No, that's really extraordinary, Nathan. It's about twice what Wall Street was looking for. And this says, when you look at Netflix, investors really have been focusing over the years on that net subscriber add number. That's really the metric as opposed to revenue or earnings per share or cash flow. It's really been how many subscribers can you get? How much market share can you get in this burgeoning streaming business on a global basis? And 15.8 million is just extraordinary. And it really reflects, Nathan, kind of what we thought we'd see, which is, hey, most people around the world are shut into their homes, and therefore they're spending a lot more time with media. They're watching more television, and they're subscribing to these streaming services, most notably Netflix. So the expectation was it was going to be a big number. It really came in better than expected. But the company was pretty clear, saying, listen, we know this 15.8 million new subscribers is a function of the quarantines around the world, and we know that as those quarantines are lifted, that number is going to come down pretty significantly. So this is a short-term bump, and it's good for the company, but don't expect it longer term. So I think that's kind of what we're seeing in the stock here. The stock's kind of flat to slightly down here in pre-market trading. But again, the stock is at or very near all-time highs right here. So I think it's kind of been priced into the stock already.
Well, when you take a look at the reaction in the pre-market to how Netflix is sort of managing expectations going forward, do you think that it's managing those expectations properly, that it's finding the right balance when it comes to the future of subscriber growth?
Yeah, I think the company's done a really good job. Reed Hastings, the CEO, has always done a really good job, I think, managing expectations. In terms of whether it's competition or the amount of money they need to spend on programming, which will be, north of $15 billion this year. So I think they always strike a good balance here. But the reality is streaming is here to stay. It's the new way that people are consuming media. And Netflix, the good news for Netflix is they have the absolute best brand in streaming, and they were first to market. They have that first market mover advantage. But there is a lot of competition. Disney, for example, has signed up 50 million subscribers for Disney Plus just in the first 5 months of launching their service. So there's going to be a lot more competition, but Netflix is certainly by far and away the leader there.
Yeah, that raises the question of whether Disney Plus can maintain that kind of subscriber growth momentum. How do you see Netflix positioned in the broadening landscape of streaming with so many services out there, from the big ones like Disney Plus and Amazon Prime to some of the smaller ones out there as well?
Yeah, it's definitely getting a lot more crowded. NBC just launched Peacock last week. HBO is coming out with HBO Max. So pretty much every big media company has their streaming service out there. And I think most investors feel like Netflix remains the dominant leader and is likely to remain a leader in that business, just given the fact that they have that brand awareness. They have 183 million subscribers worldwide, and so they're really well positioned here. The question I think a lot of investors have is, how many streaming services will the market really bear? Like, how many streaming services do you want to pay for? Is it 2, 3, 4, 5? We'll have to see how that shakes out over the next couple of years, quite frankly. But one of the things that the quarantine globally has created is kind of accelerating this whole shakeout process here, because now we're stuck in our homes, we're sampling all kinds of streaming services, and it'll probably accelerate kind of the shakeout here. So most investors feel like, certainly Netflix, Disney, with all the great content they have, they're certainly going to be a player here, and it's just a question of how the other media companies will shake out.
All right, Paul, thanks as always. Good talking with you this morning. Paul Sweeney, host of Bloomberg Surveillance, coming up later this morning here on Bloomberg Radio as well as Bloomberg Markets, and taking a look at Netflix in the pre-market, as Paul said, trading relatively flat right now. It's down 0.6% at the moment. Karen.
Nathan, thank you. It is 5:54 on Wall Street. It is time for the Bloomberg Law Report. It's brought to you by American Arbitration Association. International trade or business dispute resolved faster with the International Center for Dispute Resolution, the leader in alternative dispute resolution around the world, ICDR.org. Let's get to the legal stories we're watching this morning from Bloomberg's Jeff Bellinger.
Senator Chuck Grassley told Bloomberg taxes will not have to be raised to cover the cost of the recent fiscal stimulus, providing interest rates remain low. Federal regulators have said doctors will not face penalties for good faith use of telehealth during the coronavirus pandemic, but legal experts say the use of tools such as the Zoom app could lead to lawsuits or state actions if patient privacy violations occur. Emergency legislation in San Francisco requires restaurants, retailers, and delivery services to provide personal protective equipment to gig workers.
Bloomberg Law. Everything you need, all on one legal research platform, including guidance, analysis, and Bloomberg Market Intelligence. Find out more at BloombergLaw.com.
And now another legal story we're watching includes the latest ruling from the Supreme Court. It says landowners seeking cleanup of arsenic left over from years of copper smelting need clearance from the Environmental Protection Agency before cleaning beyond what regulators have already approved. At the same time, the court did not order an end to the lawsuit that was under review. For more on the decision, Bloomberg's June Grasso speaks to Pat Barrento, an environmental law professor at Vermont Law School.
Environmental lawyers and companies have been watching this case closely. So who gets the win? The landowners, Atlantic Richfield, the EPA?
So it's a split decision. Each gets something out of it. The landowners have the right, says the Supreme Court, to proceed in state court to seek additional remedies or restoration for the contamination from the Atlantic Richfield site. Atlantic Richfield gets to argue that the state remedy cannot interfere with the EPA remedy, which, of course, Atlantic Richfield has agreed to implement. And EPA gets to keep control over the overall cleanup and make sure that what landowners might do in addition to what EPA has ordered to be done doesn't interfere with that. So everybody gets something.
Chief Justice Roberts authored the majority opinion. What was his thinking?
The Chief Justice was sympathetic to the landowners, and he thought that Congress had clearly carved out a remedy for landowners who felt like the EPA remedy didn't go far enough to protect them. He said state courts were permissible and that Congress did not seek to cut those off. Justice Alito probably would have tossed the landowners out altogether. Justice Gorsuch was even more sympathetic to the landowners and felt like they should be able to proceed without EPA's permission. So you saw really an interesting split among the conservative wing of the court.
And that's Vermont Law School professor Pat Barrento speaking with Bloomberg's June Grasso. Catch more of that interview plus analysis of the latest legal news by subscribing to the Bloomberg Law podcast or downloading the show at Bloomberg.com/podcast. And attorneys can find exceptional legal research and business development tools at BloombergLaw.com. S&P futures higher up 38 points. Dow futures up 307. NASDAQ futures up 120. 10-year Treasury down 630 seconds. Yield 0.58%, and the yield on the 2-year 0.20%. The 30-year yield at 1.17%. And the euro 1.0863 against the dollar. Bloomberg Daybreak continues. This is Bloomberg.
Influential.
Oh, just there, Dave. Smashing. Great. Really? Night, Steve. Yeah, see ya. Built to take the big knocks. Samsung rugged devices. Easy to use, hard to break. Explore the Samsung rugged range.
Okay, people, I've got the daily checklist. Who today has ignored a call on purpose? Tick. Talked yourself out of a workout? Tick. Spent far too long scrolling on your phone? Tick. Here's another for your list. BritBox. Streaming the BBC, ITV, Channel 5, and now Channel 4. All in one place and ad-free. So add BritBox to your list and get a 30-day free trial of the biggest box of British box sets. Search BritBox free trial. Tick. Biggest compared to other SVOD providers. Auto renews at $5.99 a month unless cancelled. T's and C's apply.
24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio.
Live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studios, this is Bloomberg Daybreak for Wednesday, April 22nd, 2020. Coming up this hour.
The oil rout deepens as Brent crude hits a 2-decade low.
The Senate approves nearly $500 billion for small business.
The coronavirus outbreak eases in parts of the country and picks up in others.
And with Americans at home, Netflix reports the strongest growth in its history.
New York Governor Cuomo plans a regional reopening and eases an elective surgery ban. Plus, a Senate panel backs spy agencies on Russia's preference for Donald Trump. I'm Michael Barr. More ahead.
I'm John Stashower in sports. Rob Gronkowski coming out of retirement to be reunited with Tom Brady at Tampa Bay. Alex Rodriguez wants to own the Mets.
That's all straight ahead on Bloomberg Daybreak. On Bloomberg 1130 New York, Bloomberg 99.1 Washington, D.C., Bloomberg 106.1 Boston, Bloomberg 960 San Francisco, Sirius XM 119, and around the world on BloombergRadio.com and via the Bloomberg Business app.
Good Wednesday morning. I'm Nathan Hager.
And I'm Karen Moscow, and U.S. futures are rebounding from yesterday's losses. We are coming up to 6:01 on Wall Street, and we check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg. S&P futures up 36 points this morning. Dow futures up 283. NASDAQ futures up 111. The DAX in Germany is up 1.2%. CAC in Paris up 0.7%. And the FTSE 100 up 1.6%. Nikkei 225 in Japan was down 0.7%. And the Hang Seng in Hong Kong gained 0.4%. 10-year Treasury down 6/32, yield 0.58%. Yield on the 2-year 0.20%. COMEX gold up 2.1% or $34.90 at $17.2280 an ounce. The euro 1.0860 against the dollar. The yen 107.71. Nathan.
And Karen, oil continues its historic slide. Brent crude is joining the sell-off as the global benchmark hits a 2-decade low. The White House is exploring ways to stem the rout. We spoke with Energy Secretary Dan Brulette.
We've now contracted to take approximately 23 million barrels of oil, put that into the strategic reserve. You also saw the president's tweet. I'm going to work closely with Secretary of Treasury Mnuchin to see what we might do to look at the laws and the facilities that Congress has directed us to create, the lending facilities, to ensure that those are available to the energy industry as well.
An epic collapse in demand has oil companies reeling and the government looking to stem the fallout. Most recently, President Trump brokered a deal with producers to pull nearly 10 million barrels of crude from the market.
But that won't be enough. Demand has collapsed by at least twice that amount, and storage tanks will keep filling as travel restrictions keep planes on the ground and drivers off the road. Without production caps or shut-ins, commodities hedge fund manager Pierre Andoran says oil could fall below zero again.
Things are not going to get better very soon because we still are in oversupply. Inventories around the world will keep on going up, so it will force shut-ins. Basically, we need to have those shut-ins to rebalance the market. And then things will get better. But we cannot ask OPEC Plus to do all the work, and cuts happening in a month or two from now, are not enough. We need the shut-ins to happen now. Oil cannot be moved.
Checking prices now. West Texas Intermediate crude for June delivery is at $11.35 a barrel. WTI for July delivery at $19.87. And Brent crude trading near the lowest level in 2 decades. It is currently at $18.95 a barrel.
All right, turning to earnings now. Netflix is out with the strongest results in its history. The company added more than 15 million subscribers in the first quarter as the coronavirus outbreak kept billions of people at home in front of the TV. At the same time, Netflix warns the boom won't last. Dan Morgan covers the company for Synovus Trust.
They're trying to be smart about this and say, look, we're not going to keep up at a pace of 15 million people per quarter. Let's kind of put some water on the fire here and get back into some sort of realistic number in terms of new subscribers.
Netflix expects the surge in subscribers to come at the expense of future growth. Checking shares now, they're down about 0.5% in the pre-market.
While Netflix thrives, small business is reeling, but more help is on the way. The Senate passed nearly $500 billion in new relief funds for small companies, including $320 billion to help keep workers on the payroll. Here's Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin.
We've already impacted about 30 million workers. There'll be a lot more. So we look forward to this having a big impact on the economy.
The House could take up the bill as soon as tomorrow, and we'll get more on the measure today from Nancy Pelosi. Tune in for an interview with the House Speaker at noon Eastern on Bloomberg Radio and Television.
Well, COVID-19 cases across the country now number more than 800,000 and 44,000 people have succumbed to the disease. The pandemic is easing in some parts of the country while it's picking up in others. We have Bloomberg team coverage on the outbreak now beginning in New York with Bloomberg's John Tucker. John?
And Nathan, the latest numbers have daily infections across the country rising 5.7%. That's the biggest increase in 12 days. New Jersey reported a record increase in fatalities, 380 lives lost in a single day. Meantime, the spread is slowing in New York with the fewest new cases since March. The state has preparing plans to reopen in phases. I'm John Tucker in New York. Now here's Courtney Donahoe in our Bloomberg 1061 Boston newsroom.
Massachusetts reports more than 1,500 new infections and 150 deaths. Projections show the state at the peak of the outbreak as fatalities approach 2,000.
The data shows we're still very much in the grips of a pandemic here in Massachusetts. Now, I know that's hard to hear and it's hard for me to say.
Governor Charlie Baker says we're in the thick of the surge. He's ordered schools closed for the remainder of the academic year. I'm Courtney Donahoe. Now here's Martin DeCaro from our Bloomberg 99.1 newsroom in Washington.
Deaths in the D.C. region have passed 1,000. Confirmed cases in Maryland, Virginia, and the district approach 27,000. While the outbreak is flattening in other metro areas, White House health officials don't see a decline in D.C. yet. Still, local leaders are holding out hope to reopen the economy when limits on non-essential businesses expire in May and June. I'm Martin DeCaro in Washington. Now on the outbreak in California, here's Ed Baxter in the Bloomberg 960 San Francisco newsroom.
The state is reporting an increase of positive testing, up over 7%. Hospitalizations and ICU up for the first time in several days, and deaths of particular concern, a 5% increase. Governor Gavin Newsom.
We are still seeing spikes. We're still seeing people tragically lose their lives. We're still seeing concentration of positives.
And he says there needs to be a focus on elder care and that the state is not ready to reopen anytime soon. In San Francisco, I'm Ed Baxter, Bloomberg Daybreak.
All right, Ed, thank you. And futures this morning are moving higher. S&P futures up 34 points, Dow futures up 261, and NASDAQ futures up 105. 10-year Treasury down 630 seconds, yield 0.58%. Straight ahead, we have the latest world and national news, and this is Bloomberg.
All right, Karen, thank you. It's 6:07 on Wall Street, and here now with that latest world and national news is Michael Barton. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, Nathan. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo took a step toward reopening the state, allowing elective surgeries to take place starting next week in regions without large coronavirus outbreaks. Cuomo, speaking in Buffalo, says while hospitals downstate and in New York City in particular remain over capacity, some upstate are laying off staff due to lack of need. Governor Cuomo also told President Trump that the Navy hospital ship the Comfort, which was sent to New York City late last month, isn't needed anymore. Following his meeting with the president, Governor Cuomo said the ship helped the state.
172 people were in the Comfort, and I believe the Comfort not only brought comfort, but saved lives.
President Trump also said he will work with Cuomo to double coronavirus testing in the next few weeks. New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy says stay-at-home orders will remain in effect in his state.
Listen, I hate to be Dr. No here, but we've made an enormous amount of progress, but we've got to continue to stay home and stay away from each other. That's the only hope. We haven't plateaued yet. We still have to get to the top and then come down the other side. And the only way we do that is if we keep the social distancing we're doing.
Fatalities now total more than 4,700 in the state. In Connecticut, there are more than 1,400 virus deaths. The bipartisan Senate Intelligence Committee concluded that the nation's spy agencies correctly assessed that Russia interfered with the 2016 election in order to hurt Hillary Clinton and help Donald Trump. The committee said the assessment was backed up by the intelligence that the committee reviewed. President Trump says he would halt the issuance of green cards for 2 months, stopping short of a sweeping immigration ban.
This pause on new immigration will also help to conserve vital medical resources for American citizens. A short break from new immigration, depending on the time we're talking about, will protect the solvency of our healthcare system and provide relief to jobless Americans.
Wisconsin health officials have identified 7 people who may have contracted coronavirus after voting in the state's elections earlier this month. In-person voting was held April 7th despite the governor's opposition. Global news 24 hours a day on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg. Nathan.
All right, Michael, thanks. 6:09 now on Wall Street. Time for the Bloomberg Sports Update. Good morning, John Stashar.
Good morning, Nathan. Everyone knew there'd be trades leading up to the NFL draft, but no one really expecting a blockbuster involving a future Hall of Famer who had been retired. But after Tom Brady signed with Tampa Bay, Rob Gronkowski became interested in unretiring. The Patriots still owned his rights, but the deal was made. Gronk to the Bucs with a 7th-round pick, and the Patriots get a 4th-rounder. Gronk told Fox Sports he always said when he had that feeling again, he'd be ready, and he's ready. 5-time Pro Bowler in New England. He's caught over 500 passes, has scored more than 70 touchdowns, and almost every one of them on passes thrown by Brady. NFL MVP Lamar Jackson of the Ravens will be on the Madden video game cover, which at times has been seen as a curse, but last year was Patrick Mahomes, and he won the Super Bowl. Oliver Luck, Andrew's father, who was XFL commissioner, suing XFL owner Vince McMahon for wrongful termination. The XFL recently folded. Alex Rodriguez and Jennifer Lopez have indeed retained J.P. Morgan to represent them in raising capital to try and buy the Mets. The two, who are engaged, are said to have a net worth of roughly $700 million. The Mets were recently valued at $2.6 billion, so they would need plenty of partners. And this might not be the best time to find them, but if it really happened, presumably A-Rod would move into a role like Derek Jeter has in Miami running the franchise. 18 MLB teams have said they will not lay off any staff, but the Mets and Yankees are not among those 18. Commissioner Rob Manfred gave teams the okay to do so starting next month. John Stashauer, Bloomberg Sports. Nathan.
All right, John, thanks. And with growing speculation, sports will be played without fans when they resume. One prominent golfer is objecting. Rory McIlroy says having a Ryder Cup without fans would be not having a Ryder Cup. He says he'd rather delay the golf tournament till next year than play in September without spectators. S&P futures higher now by 34 points. Dow futures a gain of 269. NASDAQ futures higher by 103 points. 10 years down, 630 seconds yield 0.58%. You're listening to Bloomberg Daybreak.
Why do hedge funds and other alternative managers rely on Pershing for a highly personalized experience? Mark Alderati, a managing director at BNY Mellon's Pershing and head of Prime Services, explains.
In today's fast-paced environment, where the only constants are change and volatility, you need a prime broker who's both steady and agile, focused on supporting your needs so that you can focus on growing your business and producing results. Exceptional client service and advocating for our clients is at the core of what we do. Our award-winning high-touch team is just one of the benefits of working with BNY Mellon. We help alternative investment managers create great experiences for their clients. Whether it's customized financing, securities lending solutions, platform access, or outsourced trading, BNY Mellon's Pershing is a prime broker who's committed to this business and dedicated to meeting your evolving demands.
To learn more about the unique and industry-leading solutions for hedge funds and other alternative managers, visit Pershing.com. Pershing, LLC. Member FINRA, NYSE, SIPC.
Message and data rates may apply. T&C and privacy terms can be found at babbel.com/terms. Please don't text and drive.
Have you wanted to speak a new language, but you thought it'd be too hard or take too much time? Then try Babbel for free by texting EXPLORE to 64,000. In just 15 minutes a day, you'll be on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. And right now, you can try Babbel for free. Babbel starts out teaching you words and phrases by matching them with pictures. You won't believe how easy the interactive program is. Soon the sentences get a little bigger, and before you know it, you're having simulated conversations voiced by native speakers. And because Babbel is crafted by language experts and uses the spaced repetition method, in just 10 to 15 minutes a day, you'll be speaking the language of your choice with real confidence. With Babbel, you can speak a language. Just text EXPLORE to 64,000 and start your first lesson in the language of your choice for free. Download the Babbel app or text EXPLORE to 64,000 and try it for free. Text EXPLORE to 64,000.
I can find and fund my car, from a Mini to a Jaguar.
Feel good car buying from findandfundmycar.com is the place where you can find quality used cars from trusted dealers rated by you, and where you can fund your car with finance to fit your budget. It's feel good car buying all in one place.
Shouldn't be a carry on, choose findandfundmycar.com.
Oh, just there, Dave. Smashing. Great. Really? Night, Steve.
Yeah, see ya. Built to take the big knocks. Samsung rugged devices. Easy to use, hard to break. Explore the Samsung Rugged range.
Did you know that players of People's Postcode Lottery have raised over £500 million for charities and good causes? They've also won £47 million in prizes so far this year, and it could be your postcode next. Visit postcodelottery.co.uk/radio before midnight on the 23rd of April to play in the May draws. PPL managed lotteries on behalf of good causes. 16 plus, conditions apply, play responsibly.
This is a message from the government about the emergency measures to support the economy during the period of disruption caused by the coronavirus. To help you, your business, and your workers affected, you can apply for cash grants, business rate holidays, statutory sick pay relief packages, as well as the coronavirus job retention and self-employment income support schemes. For information, go to gov.uk/business-support now.
Bloomberg Television. Here's Sherry Ann.
U.S. Energy Secretary Dan Brouillette says the U.S. government is taking aggressive and appropriate steps to help oil companies during the current glut. He told Bloomberg all options remain on the table, including the banning of Saudi imports.
Yes, it is an extraordinary situation that we're looking at in the marketplace today. You saw the numbers from yesterday. I don't think anyone, at least in my lifetime, has seen anything near that or like that. We're taking very aggressive but appropriate steps to help the industry and help this economy, if you will, get through this pandemic. One of the steps that we took initially was to open up the strategic reserve, make the storage available to the industry. That's what drove some of the pricing yesterday. You'll note that the folks who were closing out those futures contracts couldn't take possession of the oil because, candidly, they had no place to put it. So storage is a very acute concern all throughout the industry. We've now contracted to take approximately 23 million barrels of oil, put that into the strategic reserve. You also saw the president's tweet. I'm going to work closely with Secretary of Treasury Mnuchin to see what we might do to look at the laws and the facilities that Congress has directed us to create, the lending facilities, the Main Street lending program, other types of facilities. There's a Federal Reserve facility as well.
Hear more interviews like this one on Bloomberg Television, streaming live on Bloomberg.com and on the Bloomberg mobile app, or check your local cable listings. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow. Futures rising this morning with S&P futures up about 31 points. Dow futures up 247. NASDAQ futures up 92. The 10-year Treasury down 8/32, yield 0.59%, and the yield on the 2-year 0.20%. NYMEX crude oil for June delivery at $11.23 a barrel. That's down about 3%. And COMEX gold is up 2%, up $34 at $17.21.80 an ounce. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Now here's Michael Barr with more on what's going on around the world. Michael.
Karen, the coronavirus outbreak is easing in some parts of the country and picking up in others. Bloomberg's John Tucker from New York has more in this live report.
Michael, U.S. cases rose 5.7% to over 800,000. That was the biggest daily increase since April 10th. In New York, the epicenter of the U.S. outbreak, fatalities were below 500 for a second day in a row. New York added almost 4,200 cases. That's the smallest number since March. New Jersey reported a record increase in fatalities, 380 lives lost in a single day. John Tucker, Bloomberg Daybreak.
John, thank you very much. Global news 24 hours a day on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg, Nathan.
Okay, Michael, thank you. It is just before 6:19 on Wall Street, live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers studios. This is Bloomberg Daybreak, and with signs that the coronavirus may be peaking in some places but not in others, the White House is saying there's enough capacity for coronavirus testing for states to begin thinking talking about reopening. To get a scientific perspective, though, on where we are on testing, we welcome back Andy Pekos, professor of molecular microbiology and immunology at the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health. Nice to have you back with us, Dr. Pekos. As we've heard, testing is the key to recovery, but what do the tests that we have so far tell us about the fatality rate from COVID-19, how severe this disease is?
Yeah, so a lot of that is now being driven by these antibody tests or blood tests that are telling you if you have had an exposure because your body has made antibodies that recognize the virus. So that's going to give us a good idea of how many people really were infected. We know that our testing is not extensive enough to capture all the cases coming through. So that's going to tell us the total number of cases and really have us put in, get a sense of how extensive this outbreak really was in various parts of the country.
So are you saying then that we don't know at this point how severe the coronavirus itself is based on the testing?
Yeah, so the total number of cases is important for us to understand how how frequently the fatalities come after infection. But it's also important to note that some of the surveys that have been done to look at the infected number of people have been coming in at around 2 to 4% of the population. That may lower the fatality rate from infection, but you have to turn it around the other way. Those numbers are telling us that 98 to 95% of the population has no immunity to this virus.